Chapter 457. The four supremacies attacked at the same time. Although their domains were not very effective against the Illusory Spirit Clan's disciples, the Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators could not get close to the supremacies. They were like moths to a flame. Huan Pei had just shouted for the Illusory Spirit Clan's experts to fight against the strong enemies with him. But now, the Illusory Spirit Clan's experts were attacking, while he himself was hiding far behind. Although Huan Pei could not see through the strength of Shaolin Yu and the others at first, he did not expect that they were all supremacies. Moreover, they dared to slaughter the Illusory Spirit Clan in front of the demon supremacies. This made his seemingly firm decision waver a little. Yin Xiang originally wanted to mediate the matter so that Shaolin Yu and the others would not start a war with the Illusory Spirit Clan. But the Illusory Spirit Clan did not give him any face, and it was useless even when he mentioned the Dragon Emperor. This made Yin Xiang a little angry, so he just looked on coldly, waiting for the Illusory Spirit Clan to suffer before he stepped in. The Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators roared as they charged, attracting more and more Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators. The Illusory Spirit Continent's teleportation array was surrounded by countless Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators, gradually forming an illusory sea. The fog gradually evaporated, and countless Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators were hiding in it. They roared and charged, but they were killed one after another by Shaolin Yu and the others. This fog had a strong restrictive effect on the cultivators' consciousness. Even the supremacy's consciousness could not be too far away from their bodies. It was similar to the illusory nebula in the cultivation world's chaotic astral ocean, but it was more powerful than the illusory nebula in the cultivation world. Shaolin Yu and the others did not need to use their consciousness to support themselves. They were surrounded by Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators. Every time the four of them attacked, a large number of Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators would be killed. However, after fighting for a while, Shaolin Yu strangely found that, just as Yin Xiang said, the Illusory Spirit Clan's Emperor-level cultivators all had special divine abilities. In this fog, the effects of those special divine abilities were even more obvious. Some of the Emperor-level cultivators of the Illusory Spirit Clan were clearly cut in half by Anya's sword light, but they recovered after a while. Some of the Illusory Spirit Clan's Emperor-level cultivators moved erratically. It was very difficult to lock on them. With the Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators, Shaolin Yu and the others did not really want to exterminate the Illusory Spirit Clan. The reason why they attacked was that the negotiation did not work. They could only use force to oppress the Illusory Spirit Clan and force them to submit. Therefore, the four of them did not specifically target the Illusory Spirit Clan's Emperor-level cultivators. They only killed the Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators who dared to rush nearby. These Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators who were killed were actually very ordinary. Even if the Emperor-level cultivators casually attacked, they could cause mass destruction. Almost every moment, thousands of Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators were killed by Shaolin Yu and the others. So far, there was not a single Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivator who could really rush to the front of the four of them and cause them a little trouble. The ordinary Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators were not very intelligent. They only knew to listen to the orders of their clan leader. If the clan leader asked them to die, they would die without any hesitation. However, the Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators who had reached the Monarch or Emperor level were not so stupid. It was not easy for them to cultivate, so they would not sacrifice their lives for nothing. Like their clan leader, they all commanded the ordinary Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators to charge and break through the enemy lines. They did not seem to care about the lives of their own people. Although a large number of Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators were killed at every moment, the scene was not bloody at all. It was not because of the fog, but because of the special body of the Illusory Spirit Clan's cultivators. After they died, they would turn into a misty white fog. There would be no splattering of blood, nor would there be any severed limbs. Not long after, the teleportation formation began to shine with white light. Waves of cultivators of different shapes and sizes walked out of the teleportation formation. Although the battle was taking place near the teleportation formation, under the control of the illusory spirit clan's cultivators, the battle did not affect the teleportation formation. After all, the illusory spirit clan's cultivators were the ones initiating the attack. Xiaoling Yu and the others did not seal the teleportation formation. The reason why the illusory spirit clan dared to be so aggressive was that they relied on the unity of the spirit clan. In order to make the illusory spirit clan admit defeat, the entire spirit clan must be terrified. It was with this idea that Xiaoling Yu deliberately did not seal the teleportation formation, allowing the other spirit clan's cultivators to come to support. The spirit clan was originally weak in the demon realm, so their encampments were naturally gathered together. Although they were not on the same continent, they could be teleported over quickly. After the spirit clan's cultivators arrived, some of the clans who had a good relationship with the illusory spirit clan directly joined the battle. However, they immediately found that the enemy was too strong. Then, they found that the illusory spirit clan's cultivators did not do much. Therefore, the cultivators of the other clans retreated and found Huan Pei to gather. Although the spirit clan was said to be weak in the demon realm, they still had many special clans. When the cultivators of these clans all gathered together, their numbers were quite large. In just 20 hours, nearly 200 Emperor-level cultivators of the Spirit Clan had gathered near the teleportation formation on the illusory Spirit Continent. Among them, there were more than 10 late-stage Emperor-level cultivators. Moreover, the number of Emperor-level cultivators of the Spirit Clan was still increasing. If it was just an ordinary Emperor-level cultivator, they might be defeated by so many Emperor-level cultivators. However, Xiaoling Yu had 4 Emperor-level cultivators on his side, and all of them were not ordinary. This did not include the Chaos Beasts. With so many Emperor-level cultivators working together, unless the Spirit Clan could get 4 or 5,000 Emperor-level cultivators, there was no way they could defeat Xiaoling Yu's group, let alone threaten Xiaoling Yu's group. Most importantly, it was impossible for the Spirit Clan to have thousands of Emperor-level cultivators. Even if they did, they would have to pay a heavy price to pose a threat to Xiaoling Yu's group. The illusory Spirit Clan might be able to fight with all their might, but the other clans might not. Although the spirit race was united, they weren't completely united. If the illusory spirit race were to suffer such a huge loss, it would be very difficult for the other spirit race leaders to agree to such a thing. When the Spirit Clan's Emperor-level cultivators reached 600, the leaders of the Spirit Clan, under Huan Pei's instigation, really did take advantage of their large numbers to launch a collective attack on Xiaoling Yu's group. With 600 Emperor-level cultivators attacking together, the momentum was definitely more spectacular than an ordinary Emperor-level cultivator's full power, and the lethality was definitely stronger. However, since Xiaoling Yu dared to wait for them to gather enough people, he wasn't afraid of their collective attack. With a light shout, he transformed the primordial fire into a purple-black dragon and met the countless streaks of light coming from the opposite side. At the same time, he struck out with the yin-yang chaos seal. Anya waved merciless divine sword and swept out a sword ray. Qing Xian summoned the high-grade defensive artifact, Nanhua Bowl. Miao Ying blew into her blood-red flute. With 4 Emperor-level cultivators working together, the 600 Emperor-level cultivators' attacks were unable to break through. Then, Xiaoling Yu gave the 3 girls a look. The 3 beauties followed Xiaoling Yu and charged towards the several hundred Emperor-level cultivators in a flash. The speed of an Emperor-level cultivator was definitely not something an Emperor-level cultivator could match. Xiaoling Yu's group of 4 were like tigers in a flock of sheep, launching a one-sided slaughter of the several hundred Emperor-level cultivators. With the enemy killing their way into the crowd, the other side could no longer launch a collective attack and could only defend themselves in groups. After 10 breaths of time, Xiaoling Yu's group of 4 charged out again, but this time, nearly 100 Emperor-level cultivators of the Spirit Clan were killed. If you continue to resist, the Spirit Clan will cease to exist in the demon realm. Xiaoling Yu shouted in a very unyielding manner. The several hundred spirit clan cultivators were in a sorry state. Not only was their formation in chaos, but they were also terrified. It was only now that they truly realized the strength of their opponents. They were more or less angry at the illusory spirit clan for causing such a disaster, and were even secretly cursing. The other side has so many emperor-level cultivators, but the illusory spirit clan still sent us to die. Let Miss Ling'er go. As the demon sovereign of the demon clan, I really can't bear to see the spirit clan suffer such a great loss. Inxiang knew the time had come, so he spoke again. Lord Yin, are you saying that my clan's children died for nothing? Huan Pei said angrily. No one said that your clan's children died for nothing. It's just that clan leader Huan Pei refused to negotiate and forced us to take action. Inxiang shook his head and said, everyone knows that the cultivators of the illusory spirit clan can't cultivate with the help of natural treasures, elixirs, or treasures. What else can you offer to make up for the deaths of my clan's children? Huan Pei defended himself. Huan Pei's defense was in fact not as tough as before. Sometimes, if you didn't beat the other party up, they wouldn't be afraid of you. Now, not only was the illusory spirit clan in pain, but the entire spirit clan was trembling in fear and had basically lost their will to fight. After all, they were facing 4 emperor-level cultivators, and 4 of them at that. If you're not willing to negotiate, how do you know that we can't offer you anything useful? Xiaoling Yu said with a smile. What can you offer? Huan Pei asked in return. As they spoke, many spirit clan cultivators had already transmitted messages to him, asking him to consider carefully and consider the interests of the entire spirit clan. I have a drop of life essence milk here. It should be able to make up for your clan's losses. Xiaoling Yu said as he took out a small jade bottle. Life essence milk. Huan Pei's expression was a little agitated, but it wasn't clear if he was really agitated or just pretending. Xiaoling Yu wasn't sure if the life essence milk was useful to the illusory spirit clan, but he knew that it was a divine item and was useful to most spirit clan cultivators. If you can give me another drop of life essence milk, I'll let the matter of Ling'er go, Huan Pei said generously. Only 1 drop. If you think it's not enough, we can continue fighting, Xiaoling Yu said casually. Chapter 458. The life essence milk was also left behind by the Immortal World's alchemy grandmaster, Mao Zhen, but there was more than 1 drop. However, Xiaoling Yu wouldn't let the illusory spirit clan take advantage of such a precious item. Regardless of whether or not Ling had devoured millions of illusory spirit clan disciples, even if it was true, the illusory spirit clan wouldn't have suffered great losses. Firstly, the illusory spirit clan's population wasn't small to begin with. Secondly, it was impossible for Ling'er to devour emperor-level illusory spirit clan experts. In fact, the number of illusory spirit clan disciples Xiaoling Yu's group had killed was no less than 10 million. Xiaoling Yu's group had caused even greater losses to the illusory spirit clan, but the illusory spirit clan's patriarch, Huan Pei, probably didn't have the guts to pursue this matter. As for the spirit clan experts that Xiaoling Yu's group had killed, they had died in vain. The cultivation world was like this. Only the stronger side had the right to speak, and only then could they gain the upper hand. If it weren't for the fact that they were in the demon world, and Xiaoling Yu didn't want to have a bad relationship with the demon race, he probably wouldn't have even taken out the drop of life essence milk. Instead, he would have continued to pressure the spirit clan to hand over Ling'er obediently. The spirit clan had also realized the severity of the problem and understood which side was the weaker side. Therefore, they could only give in or admit defeat, because the demon race would most likely not support them. It wasn't that the demon race didn't want to support the spirit clan, but the current situation was special. It wasn't just Xiaoling Yu's group that had come to the demon world, but other supremacy-level experts from both the immortal world and the demon world had also come. In order to deal with Xiaoling Yu's group, the demon race would have to go all out. If the supremacy-level experts from both the immortal world and the demon world joined in at this juncture, the demon race would be in great danger. The Dragon Emperor's intention was clear. He wanted a rope in Xiaoling Yu's group and didn't want the immortal world and the demon world's human experts to unite. The demon world had no other choice but to rope in Xiao Yu's group. Therefore, the Dragon Emperor's attitude of peace to the illusory spirit clan. Huan Pei wasn't a brainless person, and he wasn't truly unafraid of death. After the other spirit races had lost their courage, the illusory spirit race had no other choice. After pondering for a while, Huan Pei said, "The divine-grade life essence milk is indeed very useful to the illusory spirit clan. Since you're so sincere, please take the Ling with you." Although the words were beautiful, everyone knew what was going on. Of course, no one would go and say it too clearly. Then, Huan Pei invited Xiao Yu and the others to follow Yin Xiang to the illusory spirit race's forbidden land, the spirit transformation pool. The spirit dissolving pool was very important to the illusory spirit clan. Firstly, it could automatically nurture illusory spirit clan members with excellent aptitudes. Secondly, it could allow illusory spirit clan members who were born elsewhere to cleanse the impurities in their bodies. After the illusory spirit clan members entered the spirit transformation pool to cleanse their bodies, they would leave behind a lot of impurities. Ling Er's cultivation would be sealed, and she would have to clean the impurities in the spirit transformation pool. Since the spirit transformation pool was so important to the illusory spirit clan, the illusory spirit clan would naturally guard it very carefully. Even the illusory spirit emperor realm experts couldn't enter the spirit transformation pool at will without the clan leader's permission. The spirit transformation pool was completely surrounded by a large-scale illusory formation. This illusory formation had been set up by the illusory spirit clan's experts in ancient times. In the current 3 realms, no one could ignore this illusory formation. Without the guidance of the illusory spirit clan's clan leader or elder, no one could pass through the illusory formation and enter the spirit transformation pool. Under Huan Pei's lead, everyone quickly arrived outside the illusory formation that enveloped the spirit transformation pool. They couldn't see anything except rolling fog. "Everyone, please wait outside for a moment. I'll go and invite Miss Langer out." The spirit transformation pool was a forbidden area of the illusory spirit clan. Even their own clan members weren't allowed to enter as they pleased. Naturally, cultivators from other clans weren't allowed to enter as well. After Huan Pei finished speaking, he plunged into the fog without waiting for Xiao Yu and the others to reply. Xiao Yu didn't follow him because he had also sensed that this illusory formation wasn't simple. If he entered, it was very likely that he would be trapped inside forever. The reason Huan Pei hadn't specifically warned them was probably because he wanted them to follow him inside. In any case, there were countless illusory spirit clan members and spirit clan experts outside. Huan Pei wouldn't dare to play any tricks. Xiao Yu and the others didn't have to wait for too long. Soon, Huan Pei brought Ling out of the illusory formation. However, Huan Pei's expression was extremely ugly. Linger hadn't changed much. She was still as beautiful as ever and exuded an ethereal aura. Her beauty was indescribable because her body constantly alternated between reality and illusion. She gave off an elusive feeling. Looking at Ling was like looking at a person from a dream. Therefore, her beauty was even more alluring. When she saw Xiao Yu and Anya, Ling Er's originally expressionless face finally broke into an uncontrollable smile. Even Xiao Yu and Anya rarely saw Ling Er smile. Ling Er really wanted to run over and hug Xiao Yu and Anya. However, she was still trapped and couldn't move. Clan leader Huan Pei, please release her from the shackles. Xiao Yu calmed down and said calmly. "Oomph." She swallowed half of the water in our spirit transformation pond. "How are we going to settle this debt?" Huan Pei asked with a furious look on his face. The spirit pool was extremely important to the illusory spirit clan. It wasn't easy to produce the water in it. Now that half of it was gone, Huan Pei was naturally enraged. When the experts from various clans heard this, their expressions changed slightly. She only swallowed half of it, not all of it. No matter what, your clan is still a big clan in the demon realm. How can you be so calculative? As Anya spoke, she took a step forward. Although it was only one step, she was able to reach Ling Er's side and protect Ling Er. The past can be written off with a drop of life essence milk. However, the water from the spirit pool is the foundation of our clan in the demon realm. It is also the source of our clan's experts. If you don't give us an explanation, our clan will not let this matter rest. Huan Pei said agitatedly. While Huan Pei was speaking, Anya had already tried to release Ling Er from the shackles, but to no avail. The shackles on Ling Er's body were too strange and special. They couldn't be removed just because they were strong or powerful. They also needed a corresponding technique. Xiaoling Yu also scanned Ling Er's body with her mind. She couldn't help but frown. After a moment of silence, she said, "I'll give you another drop of life essence milk." "No, this matter concerns the survival of our clan. How can a drop of life essence milk solve it?" Huan Pei shook his head resolutely, and then he said, "If you intend to end this matter so easily, then don't dream of her regaining her freedom. To tell you the truth, besides me, no one else in the 3 dimensions can lift the shackles on her." "Huh." Xiaoling Yu smiled and said, "At most, we won't release her from the shackles. She won't be able to regain her freedom, but we can destroy the illusory spirit clan. If you don't believe me, we can try." The originally relaxed atmosphere actually became tense again. Therefore, the other spirit tribe experts began to persuade him to stay. They really didn't want to fight so many spirit tribe experts head-on. They couldn't win. Moreover, the loss of the spirit pool water had nothing to do with the other spirit tribe experts. Although the spirit clan was united, they had to consider the time. When the external pressure was too great, they had to consider their own interests. "If you can agree to another condition of the spirit clan, I won't pursue this matter any further," Huan Pei said after some thought. "Tell me what the condition is first," Xiaoling Yu said, non-committally. "You have to allow the experts of the spirit clan to enter the Tenshi's treasury." Huan Pei seemed to have thought carefully before he proposed this condition. In fact, one of the spirit clan experts had asked him to say this through voice transmission. "Aha! I don't have any opinion on who can enter the Tenshi's treasury. Now that the monster clan is in charge of this matter, I can't make the decision," Xiaoling Yu said with a smile and looked at demon venerable Yin Xiang. Xiaoling Yu didn't know that the monster clan had always kept the Tenshi's treasury a secret. They didn't intend to involve the spirit clan. After all, the spirit clan didn't have any venerables. If the spirit clan experts were to enter, they would only cause trouble for the monster clan. However, it was impossible to completely hide this matter from the spirit clan. After all, many monster clan experts had good relations with the spirit clan. They would definitely secretly inform the spirit clan. Originally, there weren't many spirit clan experts who knew about the Tenshi's treasury. However, Huan Pei's request was tantamount to announcing this matter to the entire spirit clan. Naturally, the other spirit clan experts' expressions became complicated. "Brother Xiao, what do you think of this matter?" Yin Xiang asked through voice transmission. "The Tenshi's treasury shouldn't be a place where just anyone can enter. Since they want to try their luck, let them go," Xiaoling Yu replied without hesitation. At this time, he didn't want to push the spirit clan too far. He definitely didn't want Ling Er to be imprisoned like this. But we demonic beasts have always been allies with the spirit race. If they follow us, we demonic beasts will have to take care of them. This will definitely affect our performance," Yin Xiang said, seemingly in a difficult position. "Even if we reject their request now, if they all go to the monster clan and make the same request again, I'm afraid the monster clan won't be able to reject it," Xiaoling Yu replied nonchalantly. "Brother Xiao, you're quite clear on this matter." Yin Xiang smiled bitterly in response to Xiaoling Yu. Then he said to Huan Pei and the other spirit clan experts, "This matter still needs to be decided by the Dragon Emperor and the other monster emperors. However, I will do my best to mediate this matter. After all, the monster clan and the spirit clan have been allies for many years and are as close as brothers. If there are benefits to be gained, I'm sure the monster emperors will also agree. We will also say a few words on behalf of the spirit clan," Xiaoling Yu added. When Huan Pei saw the other spirit race experts nodding their heads, he didn't say anything else. He immediately shot a beam of light at Ling. Xiao Lingyu and Anya subconsciously tried to block the ray of light. However, the ray of light easily penetrated Xiao Lingyu and Anya's defenses and sank into Ling Er's forehead. In the end, it spread throughout Ling Er's body and gradually disappeared. Chapter 459. In fact, Xiao Lingyu didn't compromise much in resolving the problem of Ling swallowing half of the spirit pool's water, and the illusory spirit clan didn't get any benefits. The reason for this was not because the illusory spirit clan was satisfied with obtaining the qualification to enter the Tenchi's treasure, but because Xiao Lingyu and the others were too strong. The illusory spirit clan, and even the entire spirit clan, couldn't do anything to Xiao Lingyu and the others, and they were also afraid that Xiao Lingyu and the other venerables would go crazy. Being able to obtain the qualification to enter the Tenchi's treasure through Ling Er's swallowing of the spirit pool's water was already a good result for them. This was also a way out for themselves. Although there were a lot of twists and turns in rescuing Ling fortunately, Ling was fine, and Xiao Lingyu and the others didn't get angry. As for the spirit clan, sending people to enter the Tenchi's treasure, Xiao Lingyu wouldn't worry about it. The main reason why he and the three girls came to the demon realm was not to enter the Tenchi's treasure to seek any opportunities, but to find Ling the devourer of heaven, and the icy soul heavenly silkworm. Now that Ling was by their side, and they had accurate information about the devourer of heaven, Xiao Lingyu and the others were very satisfied. They felt that the trip to the demon realm was quite smooth. Ling ascended at about the same time as Anya. Although she only cultivated in the demon realm for hundreds of thousands of years, she had always been lurking in the illusory spirit continent, waiting for an opportunity to devour the illusory spirit clan's cultivators. Therefore, her cultivation progress was very fast, and now she was in the Emperor realm. Ling original body was a mutated illusory spirit grass, and it grew in a special environment. Not only did it have an extremely strong devouring ability, but it also had a very special aptitude. Her progress was different from the human clan and demon clan's cultivators. As long as there were enough strong illusory spirits for her to devour, she could rapidly improve her cultivation without any restrictions. Even Xiao Lingyu felt that this was very abnormal, although Ling cultivation was not as high as his. The water in the spirit pool was the source of the illusory spirit clan's cultivators. Every drop contained a very rich and pure illusory spirit energy. This time, Ling directly devoured a small portion of the pool's water. If she completely digested it, she would definitely make great progress. After hugging Xiao Lingyu and Anya, Ling felt a little uncomfortable and was sent to the divine abode by Xiao Lingyu to cultivate. Xiao Lingyu could see that the reason why Ling felt uncomfortable was not too big of a problem. It was just that the spirit pool's water in her body was rapidly releasing illusory spirit energy. She only needed to work hard to refine it for a while, and she would return to normal. However, to digest so much spirit pool's water, it would definitely take a long time. It took nearly 200 years for Xiao Lingyu and the others to return to the divine dragon continent. Now, the demon clan's cultivators who were invited by the Dragon Emperor had all arrived, giving Xiao Lingyu less than 10 days to rest. Yin Xiang invited them to the Dragon Emperor's cultivation place. The Dragon Emperor's cultivation place was actually a cave, and at the end of the cave was a very spacious cave without any luxurious decorations. Hu Yunzi and the other Immortal Realm cultivators, Toba Yi and the other Demon Realm cultivators, and dozens of Demon Clan's cultivators who were all mid-stage martial emperors and above, had all been invited here. Those Demon Clan's cultivators had all transformed into their human forms and sat peacefully. Now, almost all of the three realms' top cultivators had gathered in this cave, except for those who had hidden themselves from the world. Such a scene had almost never been seen since the ancient times when the worlds were divided. Everyone gathered together to discuss the matter of going to the Tenchi's treasure trove. However, their words were vague because none of them had been there before and they were not family. There were many things that could only be said roughly, and they could not say too much. On the surface, they all said that they should help each other after entering and try to minimize disputes and conflicts. However, in reality, everyone knew what to do. This gathering was just a formality, and no one would take what was said seriously. The reason why everyone sat patiently and occasionally said a few words was because they wanted to familiarize themselves with each other and understand the other cultivators better from their words. Xiao was a very casual and cautious person, so he rarely spoke unless some cultivator mentioned him. The three women and Elder Peng did not say a word from beginning to end. At the gathering, everyone set a date for going to the Tenchi's treasure trove. They would set off in 3 days. After the gathering ended, everyone naturally returned to their temporary lodgings. However, as soon as Xiao Lingyu and the others returned, 4 Demon Clan's cultivators came knocking on their door. Among the 4 Demon Clan's cultivators, one was Yin Xiang. Naturally, there was also the Dragon Emperor. Xiao Lingyu was very unfamiliar with the other 2, but from their appearance and attire, Xiao Lingyu could guess their identities. The beautiful woman wearing a red phoenix robe and a golden phoenix crown with a graceful and noble posture was probably the Phoenix Emperor, the clan leader of the Phoenix clan. The burly middle-aged cultivator with red hair and a big beard was probably the clan leader of the Qilin clan, the Qilin Demon Emperor. The Phoenix Emperor and the Qilin Demon Emperor were only at the peak of the late-stage martial emperor realm and had not reached the supreme realm. However, Xiao Lingyu knew that they both had the bloodline of a supreme divine beast. Their strength was not weaker than that of an ordinary supreme realm cultivator. Once they were provoked and forced to use their innate magical powers, even a supreme realm cultivator would have to retreat. The 4 Demon Clan's cultivators had come to make Xiao Lingyu state his position before entering the Tenchi's treasure trove. Firstly, they were in the demon realm. Secondly, the Demon Clan had helped when they were searching for Ling Er. Thirdly, the Devourer of Heaven was still in the dragon's mystic realm. Fourthly, they still needed the Demon Clan's help to find the icy soul heavenly silkworm. Fifthly, the Demon Clan's strength was also very strong. Sixthly, Xiao Lingyu did not have a good relationship with the cultivators of the immortal realm and the demon realm. With so many considerations, Xiao Lingyu was naturally very willing to cooperate with the Demon Clan. Xiao Dao, you have to think carefully. Since you've agreed to cooperate, once we enter, we really have to work closely together. It's not as simple as just words, the Phoenix Emperor said very straightforwardly. Everyone, don't worry. As long as the Demon Clan doesn't attack us first or do anything to let us down, we definitely won't be the first to break the cooperation. Xiao Lingyu replied very sincerely. The Demon Clan's cultivators naturally wouldn't force Xiao Lingyu to make a soul oath, because they wouldn't make such an oath either. After all, no one knew the situation of the Tenchi's treasure trove, so they naturally wanted to act according to the situation. The Demon Clan's cultivators left satisfied. Xiao Lingyu and the others naturally had to settle down and think carefully. Although they were very confident in their own strength, there were too many cultivators going to the Tenchi's treasure trove this time. Moreover, the Tenchi's treasure trove might not be without danger, so it was better to make some preparations early. On the 3rd day of the 3 Realms gathering, the cultivators of the 3 Realms flew out of the Divine Dragon Continent under the leadership of the Dragon Emperor. Then, they rushed to the Tenchi's treasure trove through the teleportation formation. With so many Demon Clan's cultivators leading the way, the journey was naturally peaceful. After nearly 1,500 years, everyone finally stopped on a nameless continent in the demon realm. There is nothing praiseworthy about this continent, so everyone flew into the starry sky. This was because the Tenchi's treasure trove wasn't on the continent, but in the starry sky. However, this continent was the closest to the starry sky. After flying for nearly 10 years at a moderate pace, everyone arrived at a starry sky occupied by countless small stars. The largest of these small stars was only a few 100,000 feet in length and width, while the smallest was like an ordinary stone. They gathered together and flew continuously. Occasionally, they would collide and burst into beautiful sparks. In addition, There was a hazy nebula lingering between them, making this starry sky appear very magnificent. The Tenchi's treasure trove was in the center of this starry sky. Xiao Lingyu's consciousness could almost completely envelop this starry sky. After carefully searching for a long time, he didn't find anything unusual. Just as everyone was preparing to enter this starry sky, dozens of Spirit Clan cultivators flew over. In fact, they had set off earlier than the cultivators of the three realms, but they had been waiting on that nameless continent. When Xiao Lingyu and the others returned to the Divine Dragon continent with Yin Xiang from the Fantasy Spirit continent, Xiao Lingyu interceded with Yin Xiang on behalf of the Spirit Clan. At that time, the Dragon Emperor also nodded in agreement, so no one was surprised by the arrival of the Spirit Clan cultivators. After the Spirit Clan cultivators joined the group, the Dragon Emperor moved again, taking the lead to rush into the depths of this starry sky. These small stars were extremely fast and had a strong momentum. However, no one who came here was weak, so they naturally wouldn't be injured by these ordinary stars. In just the time it took to brew a cup of tea, everyone arrived at the center of this starry sky. Then, the Dragon Emperor said, "Take out the treasures that open the door." Yin Xiang silently took out a jade box and opened it. A small hammer-shaped key floated out. Elder Peng didn't dawdle. He also opened a jade box, and the sickle-shaped key left behind by his ancestor also flew into the air. The two keys seemed to have a connection with each other. They appeared at the same time and weren't far from each other. They flew directly together, and then the small characters carved on them all flew out as if they were alive, refining the universe's stars as a treasure, gathering heaven and earth's space-time as a spirit. These 8 characters emitted divine light, sparkling like 8 mischievous fairies. They danced around each other, and the two keys gradually grew bigger. Under everyone's astonished gazes, the 8 characters danced around for a while, then arranged themselves vertically like a couplet, facing each other. At this time, 2 more characters flew out from each of the 2 keys. When the 4 characters were placed together, it was like a couplet, Tenchi's good fortune. These 8 characters constantly emitted divine light, and the light became more and more dazzling. However, at the same time, it gradually dimmed, as if it was going to dissipate with the wind. In the middle of these 8 characters, a golden vertical line appeared. Seeing this situation, anyone would have a feeling that the vertical line was the crack of a door, but that door needed to be pushed open with force. Chapter 460. Everyone, come with me and pour your energy into these 2 keys. The Dragon Emperor shouted to everyone, and then shot a golden light at the sickle-shaped key. All the powerhouses present did the same. They poured out their power to provide energy support for the 2 keys. The 2 keys began to tremble even more violently than before, and the golden vertical line grew wider and wider. But the speed at which it widened was a little slow. In order to open this door, almost all the powerhouses spared no effort, and the consumption was naturally very great. After nearly 3 days, the 2 keys seemed to have exhausted all the energy stored in them, and finally slowly disappeared, and the golden vertical line was already 2 feet wide. The 18 words were the same, dissipating into nothingness, and only the golden vertical line remained in front of everyone's eyes. Obviously, the door to the treasury had been opened, and it could only be opened so wide. All the powerhouses of the 3 realms did not hesitate, and they all flew towards the golden vertical line. The vertical golden light did not stop them, and everyone's figures disappeared after coming into contact with the golden light. Xiao Lingyu and the others did not fight for it, and only after everyone had entered did they follow. After all the powerhouses of the 3 realms had disappeared from this starry sky, less than 100 breaths of time had passed, and the golden vertical line suddenly scattered into a golden stream of light that filled the sky. After passing through the golden vertical line, everyone was in a void, and in front of everyone was a clearly outlined door that was completely open, with the words "One Line Sky" written on the lintel. After entering this door, it was the one-line sky. But if one were to rely on the naked eye alone, they would not be able to see anything behind the door, and their minds would not be able to penetrate the door. This time, everyone did not directly rush in, but carefully pondered the meaning of the 3 words. However, it was difficult to determine the situation behind the door with just these 3 words. After pondering for a long time, everyone lost their patience and entered the door one after another. Behind the door was not a void, but a place like a mine, and it could be considered very spacious. All the powerhouses of the 3 realms who entered here were lined up, and if they advanced side by side, they should not touch the stone walls on both sides. However, what surprised everyone was that there were very obvious fluctuations of divine power on the stone walls on both sides, and upon closer inspection, they discovered that there seemed to be divine stones inside the stone walls. This tunnel was actually a divine stone mine. With the exception of a few special spirit clan experts like the illusory spirit clan, almost all of the cultivators were tempted. They didn't move forward and just stared at the stone walls on both sides. Those who came here were either late-stage emperors or supremes. Almost all the cultivators coveted the godstones. Now, not only were there pitifully few godstone veins in the 3 realms, but the godstones in them were almost all extracted. Furthermore, the divine stone vein here was emitting such a dense fluctuation of divine power. This proved that there are definitely a lot of divine stone inside, and they would not be of low quality. After a few glances, the immortal realms who Yunzi and the devil realms Tuoba simultaneously took out a shovel-like magic treasure and began to chisel at the stone wall. The stone wall was not very hard, and the 2 of them only used a few breaths of time to obtain a piece of divine stone. Thus, they worked even harder. When the other cultivators saw this, they also took out all kinds of sharp and hard magic treasures and joined the team to mine the divine stones. Although the divine stones were indeed very valuable, Shaolin Yu couldn't help but laugh inwardly when he saw the experts of the 3 realms working like miners. This was where the Tenshi's treasures were hidden. There must be even greater opportunities inside. It was really not worth wasting time here for some divine stones. Those who were rich or had the same idea as Shaolin Yu didn't start mining. Instead, they continued forward. However, what they didn't expect was that this divine stone mine was very long. Although there were no twists and turns, and it was always a straight line, it seemed to have no end at all. Shaolin Yu and the other cultivators used a full half a year, but they were still in this divine stone mine. Moreover, they couldn't see the end at all. However, everyone was careful and didn't move very quickly. In fact, they didn't go too far in half a year. This half a year had pretty much worn down everyone's patience. Thus, the experts who didn't mind began to gradually speed up. However, even in the end, everyone raised their speed to the maximum, but they still didn't reach the end after a very long time. There should be an end. How could a mine have no end? Everyone thought so, so they still persisted and continued to move forward. In order to reduce the team's consumption, Shaolin Yu invited the 3 women and Elder Peng into his spiritual abode. Then, he moved forward at full speed alone. The speed of a venerable expert was very fast. Moreover, this mine didn't obstruct them at all. Moreover, it was always extending in a straight line. There was no need for them to change direction. However, even so, after 10 years, everyone was still in this mine. Because of the difference in speed, everyone's position was also different. Those who were faster would naturally be in the front. Those who were slower would naturally be left behind. After persisting for nearly 20 years, Shaolin Yu finally stopped. He felt that if they continued to fly like this, they wouldn't be able to find the end. What does the one-line sky mean? Almost all the experts of the 3 realms who persisted in flying until now were thinking about this question. Everyone also felt that if they wanted to walk out of this mine, they had to first understand the meaning of the one-line sky. Unfortunately, the layout here was very simple. It couldn't provide any useful clues for everyone to speculate. However, there was still a road ahead. Who knew if there was an end in front of them? If there was an end, wouldn't it be a waste of time if they stopped here? After all, everyone had only been flying for a few decades. A few decades really didn't mean much to them. No one could say for sure if there was an end in front of them. Some cultivators thought that there should be an end after thinking about it, and continued to move forward. Those who thought there was no end also began to mine. There were so many divine stones here. If they continued to mine like this for tens of thousands of years, they would still gain a lot. The one-line sky. The one-line sky is the sky, and the sky is boundless. This mine happens to be the one-line sky. It most likely has no end. Shaoling Yu's words received the approval of the three women and Elder Peng. Therefore, everyone unanimously decided to stop flying forward. Since they had nothing to do, Shaoling Yu also began to mine divine stones with everyone, although he previously thought it was a little ridiculous. In fact, for his supremacy, mining was not a tiring and dirty job. Furthermore, the mining speed was very fast. Almost every 10 breaths, Shaoling Yu and the others could each obtain a piece of low-grade divine stone. If they really focused on mining here, they would indeed gain a lot. After a period of time, Shaoling Yu also invited the chaos beast, Fudi, out of the spiritual abode. Fudi didn't know how to use any Dharma treasures. He only used his mouth to dig like a pig digging mud. However, his speed was much faster than Shaoling Yu and the others. As time passed, Shaoling Yu and the others obtained more and more divine stones. They had already devoted themselves to the work of mining divine stones. After about a few hundred years, the cultivators who persisted in searching for the end of the mine also stopped. They still couldn't find the end of the mine. Their patience was exhausted. Helpless, they didn't waste such a good opportunity and also began to mine divine stones. Some of the cultivators dug in groups of 3 or 5, while others dug alone. New mines, either to the left or to the right, continued to extend. The mine was so long that its end could not be seen, and its width seemed to be endless as well. Even though Shaoling Yu and the others excavated at an extremely fast speed, after 1,000 years, they were still blocked by the stone walls that were wrapped in many divine stones. However, what puzzled Shaoling Yu was that a divine stone mine of such a scale should be an extremely high-grade one. However, after 1,000 years of digging, they only obtained a few hundred mid-grade divine stones. There wasn't a single high-grade or supreme-grade divine stone. Most of the divine stones were actually low-grade divine stones. However, Shaoling Yu was almost certain of one thing. The divine stones contained in this divine stone mine were definitely more than all the divine stone mines in the 3 realms and the divine stones stored by the cultivators. Moreover, there was a lot more of them. This made Shaoling Yu couldn't help but marvel at Tenchi's generosity. He was actually able to bring such a huge divine stone mine here. However, what Shaoling Yu didn't expect was that they would dig for 10,000 years before there was no longer a stone wall in front of them. With the few of them and the Fudi, their digging speed was definitely the fastest among all the teams. Even so, it took 10,000 years. The other teams would definitely need some time. At the end of the stone wall was still a void. However, in the distance, there was a very small light spot shining. Shaoling Yu and the others didn't dawdle and directly flew toward the light spot. In fact, it wasn't a light spot, but a door of light. On the door of light, there were 3 words, Dual Extreme Hall. Perhaps it was because Frontline Heaven didn't encounter any danger and instead smoothly obtained a large number of divine stones, causing Shaoling Yu and the others to lower their vigilance. Or perhaps it was because they were in the lead and didn't want to wait for those behind to catch up. Shaoling Yu and the others stood at the door for less than the time it took to drink a cup of tea before they collectively passed through the door of light. Behind the door of light was a large mountain. However, this mountain was directly cut in half from the waist up. It looked as if it had been flattened by a huge sword. The mountain was very vast, spanning no less than 10,000 kilometers. Even the waist of the mountain should have a radius of several thousand kilometers. However, the entire waist of the mountain was completely occupied by an extremely large and grand hall without any luster. That hall should be the Dual Extreme Hall. Elder Peng said with narrowed eyes. Isn't that obvious? Miaoing said with a smile. Elder Peng's old face turned red. He smiled awkwardly and didn't say anything else. Immediately, Xiaoling Yu and the others didn't dawdle and flew towards the hall together. Chapter 461. The mountain and the hall clearly hadn't moved, and Xiaoling Yu and the others had been constantly moving forward. However, no matter when they looked at it, they felt that the distance between them and the hall was still as far as before. They hadn't closed in at all. If it was because they were too far away or the mountain was constantly moving back, then it would be understandable. However, the situation wasn't like that. After flying for a while, Xiaoling Yu and the others had no choice but to stop. They had actually encountered the same situation as they had in the one-line sky. They didn't know if they should continue flying forward or stop to find another way. Xiaoling Yu and the others weren't sure if they could reach the hall if they continued flying forward. However, it seemed that it would be very difficult to find another way if they stopped. They would occasionally look back and discover that they were already very far away from where they had just arrived. This was enough to prove that they had indeed moved. They first stopped to search for a while, but when they didn't find anything, Xiaoling Yu and the others continued flying forward. A few hundred years after Xiaoling Yu and the others had entered this place, the other experts of the three realms had passed through the door of light one after another. However, everyone was the same. No matter how quickly they flew, they were unable to truly approach the hall. The mountain and hall were like a mirage in the eyes of mortals. They could only look at it but couldn't reach it. Previously, when they were trapped in the one-line sky, they could at least take the divine stones for free. However, now that they were trapped here, they could only admire the majesty of the mountain and the magnificence of the hall. This made everyone more and more agitated, but there was nothing they could do. Xiaoling Yu and the others were the first to arrive here. Theoretically speaking, they were naturally trapped the longest. However, Xiaoling Yu, who had been to many places where treasures were hidden and experienced many dangers, knew that they couldn't be impatient or lose their patience and reason when they were in a place like this. They had to maintain a clear head and calm mind at all times so that they could deal with the dangers that could arrive at any time. Thus, not only did he force himself to remain calm and composed, he also tried to persuade the three women and Elder Punk. As for the chaotic beast, Glutton, not long after it entered this place, it took the initiative to ask Xiaoling Yu to take it into his divine abode to sleep. It was helpless against the strange situation here. The more they couldn't get close to the hall, the more they felt that there were treasures hidden inside. Naturally, they became more and more anxious. Everyone was a person with a high state of mind. They all knew that this matter couldn't be rushed, but they still couldn't suppress the anger in their hearts. Moreover, as they each searched for a solution, they had to keep an eye on the other experts, in case they found a way to sneak away. The one-line sky situation. The three words. 2. Xiaoling Yu was fully immersed in the analysis. His mind was a mess, and he couldn't sort it out no matter how hard he tried. It was as it. Xiaoling Yu wasn't the only smart person. In fact, most of the experts were speculating in their hearts. Most of them were like Xiaoling Yu, but the results were hard to come by. Perhaps because they were impatient, Miao Ying and the other two women also asked Xiaoling Yu to send them into the divine abode. In the end, only Elder Peng insisted on accompanying Xiaoling Yu. Everyone was trapped. Although they kept moving forward, it was as if they hadn't moved at all. They couldn't get close to the mountain hall. Although they were in the divine abode, the three beauties didn't stay idle. They began to talk one after another. After a long discussion, Miao Ying suddenly took out 2 pieces of iron. To everyone's surprise, the 2 pieces of iron were placed on the ground. They were a foot apart, but then they touched each other. Moreover, the 3 women didn't touch them, nor did they control them in any way. Are these magnets? Anya asked. Yes, these are 2 magnets. Their natures are opposite, but they attract each other. Miao Ying first vaguely explained, then put down one of the magnets in reverse. The 2 magnets immediately pushed each other invisibly. Originally, they were only a finger's width apart, but in an instant, they were a foot apart. Then, Miao Ying used one hand to push one of the magnets closer to the other, but the other one kept moving back. It kept a foot away from the magnet Miao Ying was pushing. I understand. Qing Xian suddenly shouted when she saw this. What do you understand? Anya asked. Qing Xian suddenly thought of something, but she didn't know how to say it. If I'm not wrong, the two extreme holes should refer to the positive and negative poles. The mountain hall we saw outside should have the same magnetic polarity as us. That's why we can't get close to it, Meowing explained. But the mountain and the hall haven't moved at all? Anya asked, puzzled. That should be Tenchi's doing. We can see that they haven't moved, but we can't say for sure whether they've moved or not, Meowing said. Then what should we do? Qing Xian asked. Change our magnetic polarity, or find something with the opposite magnetic polarity to take us there. Anya seemed to have thought it through, so she replied. The mountain and the hall should have the same magnetic polarity as most of the things in the three realms. I don't think we can find anything with the opposite magnetic polarity. Meowing shook her head and said. The three women were silent for a while. Then Qing Xian suddenly said, Let's go out and discuss it with our husband. Maybe he has a way. Thus, the three women left the god's residence and told Xiao Lingyu the result of their discussion. Xiao Lingyu basically agreed with Miao Ying's point of view, so she asked everyone to take out everything in their storage rings and try one by one. Unfortunately, they didn't find anything with the opposite magnetic polarity. If there really was such a thing, they would have discovered it long ago. After all, this kind of thing would repel them. Actually, there's another way we can try, Meowing suddenly said. What way? Anya and Qing Xian asked at the same time. That is, we can change our direction and go with our backs facing the mountain hall. Maybe we can find something, Meowing replied with uncertainty. Xiao Lingyu thought for a while and said, There's no good way right now. Let's try it first. I think it's feasible. The others naturally didn't have any objections, so Xiao Lingyu and the others all turned around. Their actions couldn't be completely hidden from the other experts of the three realms. However, the experts of the three realms all thought that Xiao Lingyu and the others had completely given up and wanted to leave. They didn't think of other ways, so no one followed them. After all, they hadn't been here for long, so they still had a glimmer of hope that they could continue moving forward. After a while, everyone suddenly thought of something. After they passed through the door of light, there was no way back. There was only a void around them, and there was no exit. The door of light only existed on the other side. After thinking about this, everyone began to suspect the reason Xiao Lingyu and the others turned around. A small number of experts also turned around. More and more cultivators continued forward, but they gradually lost hope in continuing forward, so they turned around one after another. Xiao Lingyu and the others flew with their backs, facing the mountain, for 100 years before they finally found something. Furthermore, this discovery made them extremely excited and happy. They actually saw the mountain and the main hall again, but it was obvious that they were looking at a different location. Originally, they should have seen the main entrance of the main hall, but now they were looking at the back of the main hall. As they continued forward, the hall and the mountain became more and more obvious, and the distance between them and the mountain was constantly shrinking. It seemed that Miao Ying's speculation was completely correct, and this speculation undoubtedly put Xiao Lingyu and the others in the lead. Soon, Xiao Lingyu and the others arrived at the flat ground halfway up the mountain, but another problem was placed in front of them. Everyone was at the back of the hall, and the entire hall was completely sealed. They could only enter from the main door, but they couldn't go to the main door. Once they went there, they would be repelled back to where they first arrived in this world. Although Xiao Lingyu and the others were the top experts of the three realms, they were not confident that they could resist the repelling force of the mountain and the hall. Obviously, it was not a wise choice to barge through the main door, but there was no back door to the hall, so how could they enter? If they couldn't enter the hall, what was the point of everyone coming here? At the back of the hall, Xiao Lingyu and the others fell into deep thought, and their brows were tightly knitted. Whether it was here or the one-line sky just now, there was no danger, but these various problems were more troublesome than facing danger. In front of them was the back wall of the hall, and above the back wall was the ceiling of the hall. There were no holes. Xiao Lingyu tried to attack the back wall of the hall, but even a divine weapon like the silver moon broken sword could not damage the wall at all. Anya also couldn't hold back, and used the unforgiving divine sword to attack the wall. Although it left a white mark on the wall, the hall also erupted with an extremely powerful aura, forcefully pushing Xiao Yu and the others far away. Furthermore, they were all shaken to the point where they spat out blood. The impact of the hall's aura alone could hurt Xiao Yu and the others. No matter how bold Xiao Yu and the others were, they did not dare to continue attacking. When they returned to the front of the hall again, Xiao Yu suddenly had a thought, and his hand began to dance as he silently chanted chaos into yin and yang. Yin and yang were also two extremes, and when chaos into yin and yang, it could stabilize the order of all the energy fluctuations in the space, and it could also suppress the magnetic field here. Chapter 462. Isn't it obvious that he doesn't want us to go in? Qing Xian said angrily. Xiao Yu and the others were getting angrier and angrier as all their methods were ineffective. Haha, this must be Tenchi's way of testing our patience and attentiveness. Let's not be anxious. It's useless to be anxious, Xiao Yu said with a smile, although she was also anxious. Tenchi's design is very impressive. He doesn't need to set up any dangers here, but the things he set up can make us panic. We're actually fighting with ourselves now. This is much more dangerous than the visible dangers. Elder Peng nodded in agreement. But why is Tenchi testing us? He doesn't want us to get the treasures so easily, so he directly put himself in danger. Wouldn't it be fine if he set up some divine formations, divine restrictions, or put some divine beasts here? Anya said, unhappily. It's useless for us to make wild guesses about why Tenchi set up such a design. However, he definitely has a special purpose. Elder Peng replied, everyone calm down first. Then look around carefully and think about it carefully. Xiao Yu waved her hand and said to everyone. They hadn't thought of a solution yet, but more and more experts from the three realms arrived at the back of the hall using the same method. Their original lead was gradually disappearing. This made the three women a little unhappy. Xiao Yu, on the other hand, was very open-minded. They had arrived here first, so they had more time than others to think of a solution. If they were always in the lead, then as long as they could quickly solve a problem or difficulty, they would have a great chance of always being in the lead. They might even be able to obtain an opportunity that other experts couldn't. It was useless to complain about Tenchi's design. Tenchi had given them a difficult problem, so they just needed to calm down and solve it. More and more experts from the three realms gathered here. In the end, almost all the experts from the three realms were here, but everyone stopped there. Some experts wanted to go around to the front of the hall, but unfortunately, they were instantly pushed aside halfway. Then, they wasted a lot of time going back. Xiao Yu felt that they should make a fuss about the words "two extremes hall." This was the only clue that Tenchi had left for everyone. The front and back of the hall have two different magnetic polarities. This should form a magnetic field. If the two magnetic polarities can cancel each other out in the center, then there should be almost no magnetic force in the center. Xiao Yu pondered for a long time. Then, she suddenly remembered the knowledge she had learned when she was studying on Earth. Her attention began to shift. Ever since he started cultivating, Xiao Yu felt that the knowledge he had learned in books was too narrow. It was not suitable for cultivation, and it might not be suitable for the cultivation world. After all, there were too many things in the cultivation world that could not be explained by science on Earth. Most of them were not even mentioned. Therefore, he rarely used the knowledge he had learned on Earth. Usually, he would not think about it all. The longer he cultivated, the easier it was for the knowledge to fade away. Most of the cultivators in the cultivation world knew about magnetism and magnetic fields, but they wouldn't study it because both magnetism and magnetic fields were invisible. Moreover, most of the time, they were balanced and didn't have any effect on cultivators. While everyone was still studying the back wall of the hall and the stone slabs under their feet, Xiao Yu quietly moved to the front of the hall. Xiao Yu stopped at the center of the side wall of the hall. He carefully observed for a long time, but he did not find anything. The magnetic polarity here was very strange. It was not something he could clearly capture with his mind. Then, he went to the center of the other side wall to take a look. He also did not find anything, so he looked at the top of the hall. The spatial pressure here was very strong, but it was not so strong that Xiao could not fly. In fact, many experts from the three realms had already flown up to take a look, but they did not find anything. Xiao had also flown up before, but he still flew up this time. The roof of the large hall was also divided into two. Both sides were covered by special red tiles without any gaps. If one were to look carefully, one would be able to faintly see that there were rune patterns flowing on the tiles. Xiao, who had already been up there once, knew that it was very difficult to get any useful information from the runes. This was because the runes were created by the Tenshi. They were very clever and were not something he could understand. Even Elder Peng, who was of the same lineage as the Tenshi, could only secretly shake his head after looking at the runes. Xiaoling's attention was not on the runes. Instead, he was very carefully looking for any abnormalities. There was a long beam in the middle of the hall's roof. This long beam was covered by semicircular tiles. It was like a dividing line that divided the hall into the front and back. The front was magnetic, while the back was magnetic. Xiao felt that the key to the problem should be on this long beam. However, after looking carefully, he did not find anything. Just as Xiao was about to give up on the roof and jump down from the roof, he found that the cross-section at the end of the long beam was actually an emblem of a circle of yin-yang fish. The hall was very tall, so everyone was standing at the foot of the hall. When they looked up, they couldn't see the two sides of the long beam. Even if they did, they wouldn't care too much about the yin-yang fish insignia. After all, it was too common. However, Xiaoling's heart suddenly moved. He suddenly thought of a word, taiji. The pattern of the yin-yang fish was actually a taiji diagram. It was formed by a black fish, a white fish, and the black and white fish eyes. This was left behind by an ancient powerhouse on Earth. It was said that taiji gave birth to yin and yang. The reason why he thought of taiji when he saw the yin-yang fish emblem was because this hall's name, Hall of Two Extremes, had the word ji in it. Xiao vaguely remembered that Zhongji had once guessed that this Tenshi was most likely an ancient powerhouse on Earth. Taiji gives birth to yin and yang. Taiji gives birth to yin and yang. Xiao floated on the side of the hall's wall. He stared at the circle of yin-yang fish emblem and recited it repeatedly. There were very few people in the cultivation world who mentioned taiji. It seemed that this had been gradually forgotten by cultivators below the realm of the gods along with the division of realms. However, Xiao understood some of the principles of chaos. Taiji gave birth to yin and yang. In the eyes of cultivators, it meant that chaos was divided into yin and yang. Taiji was chaos, and it was the unification of vitality. Meanwhile, yin and yang were the division of chaos, and then pushed the formation and development of all things in the world. All things in the world also had yin and yang. Before Xiao could think of the key point, he realized that the yin-yang fish on the long beam had actually turned slowly. However, after he noticed this, he took a closer look. The yin-yang fish looked as if it had never moved. Xiao knew that it was definitely not, because he had been looking at it for too long. At his level of cultivation, it was impossible for him to be seeing things. Therefore, he continued to think while he stared at the circle of yin-yang fish. Not long after, he saw the yin-yang fish emblem turn once again. However, it stopped very quickly, and there was nothing else unusual about it. Xiao felt that it would not be of much use to just guess and observe it. Therefore, he sent a stream of chaotic, demonic energy towards the circle of yin-yang fish emblem. That stream of chaotic, demonic energy sank into the yin-yang fish, but it only caused the black and white fish eyes to emit a faint light. However, during this process, Xiao realized that there was something unusual about the sidewall. This fluctuation was very weak, and it would be difficult to notice it if one did not focus on it. Therefore, Xiao sent another stream of chaotic, demonic energy into the taiji diagram, and the sidewall also shook slightly. Xiao felt that the amount of chaotic, demonic energy he sent into the taiji diagram was too little. Therefore, he continuously increased the amount of chaotic, demonic energy he sent into the Taiji diagram. Just as he expected, the more chaotic, demonic energy he sent into the Taiji diagram, the more intense the fluctuations on the sidewall. Shaolin Yu's spell casting naturally attracted the attention of the powerhouses of the three realms. Everyone came closer. Shaolin Yu did not stop just because everyone was there. He continued to send chaotic, demonic energy into the yin-yang fish. However, even after he used up a third of his power, he could only make the sidewall shake and could not form a further breakthrough. During this period, Shaolin Yu also tried to turn the chaotic energy into yin and yang. Although the yin and yang energy would not dissipate here like it did on the other side of the wall and would be absorbed by the Taiji diagram, the effect was similar to that of chaotic, demonic energy. Therefore, Shaolin Yu did not do anything unnecessary. In a place like this, under the watchful eyes of the powerhouses of the three realms, Shaolin Yu naturally did not want to consume too much of his power. After using up a portion of his power, he decisively stopped and took out a piece of divine stone to recover his power. When the other powerhouses saw this, they also sent their power into the Taiji diagram. Although the Taiji diagram also absorbed their power, the sidewall did not react at all. Only the divine power of a paragon could occasionally cause the sidewall to shake a little. However, compared to the fluctuations created by chaotic, demonic energy, the fluctuations created by the divine power of other paragons were clearly much weaker. From the fluctuations on the sidewall, the paragons of the three realms speculated in surprise that the quality of their divine power was actually inferior to Shaolin Yu's power. In fact, the paragons who had fought with Shaolin Yu had long realized this point. However, they would find all kinds of reasons to deny it in their hearts. After Shaolin Yu recovered his power, he activated his power with all his might and released it outside, gathering it in front of him. After sensing the terrifying power contained in the ball of energy in front of Shaolin Yu, almost all the powerhouses of the three realms were secretly shocked and retreated at the same time. This time, Shaolin Yu poured out a third of his power and sent it toward the Taiji diagram. The Taiji diagram still did not reject Shaolin Yu's chaotic, demonic energy. However, two strong rays of light shot out from the two fish eyes, and the side wall shook even more violently, revealing a side door. Chapter 463. Now that the side door had been revealed, everyone saw the hope of entering the two extremes palace, so they poured even more energy into the Taiji diagram. This kind of pouring of energy consumed a lot of energy. Even if a venerable rank powerhouse poured out half of their energy, it would not cause any obvious fluctuations to the sidewall, but it would make the side door gradually become clearer. It was impossible for everyone to pour out all their energy in one go, so they would keep at least half of their energy. As long as half of their energy was consumed, they would immediately stop and use divine stones to recover their energy. Fortunately, everyone could see that the side door was gradually revealing itself. Otherwise, no one would have squandered their skills like this. But even if the powerhouses of the three realms poured their energy together, the side door would only become clearer and clearer. Judging from the speed, it would take a long time for the side door to solidify. Fortunately, everyone came fully prepared. Not only did they bring a lot of healing and recovery pills, but they also obtained countless divine stones in the one-line sky. Otherwise, it would really be difficult for them to hold on. In order to open the side door as soon as possible, everyone directly absorbed the divine energy in the divine stones. They did not carefully refine it, but poured the not-so-pure energy into the Taiji diagram. However, as time passed, everyone gradually discovered that the number of divine stones they had obtained in the one-line sky mine was decreasing. Furthermore, at this rate, it would not be long before all the divine stones they had painstakingly obtained from the mine would be used up. In this way, these powerhouses of the three realms who had been happily mining in the one-line sky for so many years had actually been in vain. This should be the Tenshi's intention. But if we don't mine in the one-line sky, We won't have enough energy to open the side door of the Two Extremes Palace. We will have to stop here. The powerhouses of the three realms all realized this, and their expressions were a little helpless. Moreover, they felt like they had been completely tricked by the Tenchi. Before coming in, everyone had thought of many scenarios. They were all prepared to face fierce battles after entering, but they had never imagined that they would encounter such a sullen situation. After obtaining so many parangons, they had rejoiced for nothing. This made everyone realize that before they left the Tenchi's treasure trove, any benefits they obtained might not truly belong to them. When they were pouring their power into the Taiji map, there were naturally some experts who wanted to hold back a little. They did not put in any effort and waited for the other experts to consume the divine level stone, but there were many experts who wanted to do so. Everyone was holding back, so who would not hold back? I advise all of you to give up on those thoughts for now. If you can't open this side door, what's the use of keeping those divine stones? Everyone, don't forget that we have no way out now that we've entered this place. The only way out is to work together and continue forward. The Dragon Emperor and the other demon emperors have been working very hard. Seeing that some of the experts were slacking off, the Dragon Emperor could not help but remind them. None of them were fools. Naturally, they understood that the Dragon Emperor's words made sense, so they began to contribute again. However, one could not expect everyone to do their best. There would always be some experts who were somewhat selfish. Under everyone's persistent efforts, the outline of the door was already very clear. It was as if there was a real side door on the sidewall. However, the door was still tightly shut. If everyone continued to pour their power into the Taiji map, the crack of the side door would widen a little. No one knew how long it took. In any case, when the parangons in everyone's storage artifacts were almost completely exhausted, the side door was finally completely opened. At this time, although the Two Extremes Palace was still stable, it was constantly emitting black and white light. The Taiji map on the side of the long beam was also spinning rapidly. Everyone could feel two very special magnetic fluctuations surging towards the front and back of the Taiji Palace. Fortunately, everyone was in the middle of the two magnetic forces, so they were not affected by the magnetic force. Xiao Lingyu suddenly realized that the magnetic force here was indeed emitted by the Taiji Palace. Moreover, it was formed when Taiji gave birth to yin and yang, which was also when primal chaos transformed into yin and yang. The influence of Taiji giving birth to yin and yang should not only affect the outside of the Taiji Palace. It was probably even more obvious inside the Taiji Palace. As soon as the side door of the Taiji Palace opened, many experts rushed in impatiently. However, the expected screams did not come out. The Taiji Palace did not have any abnormalities because of the experts who entered. It was still emitting black and white light, releasing waves of shocking magnetic force. The Dragon Emperor glanced at Xiao Lingyu before entering Taiji Hall with the other experts of the demon race. The experts of the spirit race followed closely behind the experts of the demon race. Xiao Lingyu knew that the Dragon Emperor's glance meant to remind him not to forget their previous agreement. He only smiled in response. Then, he put a divine pill in his mouth before entering the Taiji Palace with the three women and Elder Punk. The Taiji Palace occupied the mountainside of the mountain. It covered a wide area. Not to mention the experts of the three realms. Even if a large army entered, it would not be too conspicuous. After Xiao Lingyu and the others entered the Taiji Palace, the first thing they saw was a long golden corridor. Most of the experts of the three realms who came in earlier were still in the corridor. However, they were all staring at the rooms on both sides of the corridor. After taking a few more steps forward, Xiao Lingyu discovered that the rooms on both sides of the corridor were nameless. Moreover, the doors were not closed tightly. It was as if the doors would immediately open with a casual push. Although the doors were a little strange, there were still some bold experts of the three realms who pushed the door in front of them. In the end, the door opened very easily. The expert who pushed the door open first glanced into the room. Then, he rushed in with a face full of surprise. However, as soon as he rushed in, the door closed with a bang. Moreover, it was closed very tightly. It was unknown whether it was to prevent other experts from entering or to trap the expert who had already entered inside forever. Then, everyone pushed the door in front of them open. All the experts' eyes were filled with greed and surprise when they saw the scene inside the room. Xiaoling Yu could not help but push the door next to him open. He could not help but narrow his eyes when he took a look inside the room. In the depths of the room, there was a jade table. Several jade bottles stood steadily on the table. Each jade bottle contained a pill. Moreover, the quality of each pill was extraordinary. Like Xiaoling Yu, most of the experts who pushed the door open did not immediately enter. This was because the person who entered first did not come out. Moreover, the door was not open. Everyone was not sure what would happen when they entered. They were all waiting and observing rationally. After Xiaoling Yu glanced at the room in front of him a few more times, he walked away. The three women and Elder Peng obviously had a look of regret on their faces. However, they naturally did not enter the room. Instead, they silently followed behind Xiaoling Yu, all the way to the other end of the long corridor. Xiaoling Yu passed by many doors and glanced into those rooms. However, his expression remained calm. In those rooms, there were either books, jade slips, or various types of magical treasures lying on the tables. All of them looked extraordinary and very tempting. No wonder those experts didn't dare to enter, nor were they willing to leave. At the other end of the long corridor was a very spacious hall. In the center of the hall were 4 statues that stood close to the wall. Other than the 4 statues, there was nothing special in the entire hall. The walls, floor, and ceiling were just a smooth golden color. There's no way out. Elder Peng frowned. Could it be that entering from the side door can only lead us to here? Anya was also puzzled. In that case, we might as well go back and find a room to try our luck, Qing Xian said. I'm afraid those rooms are not that simple, Miaoing said calmly. We came here to take the risk and find treasures. Although we obtained a lot of divine stones before, they were almost all used up when we opened the side door. This time, the treasures in those rooms are right in front of us. If we don't go in because we're worried about danger, then why did we come to this Tenchi's treasure trove? Qing Xian was not convinced. These statues are not simple. They are divided into 4 directions. Although they are not moving, they give off a strong sense of oppression, Xiaoling Yu suddenly said. Oppression? Why don't I feel it? Anya frowned and asked. Elder Peng, Qing Xian, and Miaoing also looked at Xiaoling Yu. Obviously, they did not feel any oppression. None of you feel the special aura of oppression caused by the 4 invisible forces entangling and clashing with each other? Xiaoling Yu asked, even more surprised. Elder Peng and the 3 women shook their heads repeatedly. That's strange. Why do I feel it so clearly? Xiaoling Yu's expression became serious. Not long after, other experts also entered the hall. However, from their expressions, it was clear that they did not feel anything out of the ordinary. Xiaoling Yu thought it was strange. She led Elder Peng and the 3 women out of the hall for the time being. Then, they stopped and waited in the corridor. Many of the experts of the 3 realms who stayed in the corridor were actually waiting. They were waiting for the first cultivator who entered the room to come out. After waiting for nearly 4 hours, the only tightly shut door suddenly opened, and the body of the expert who had entered the room first flew out of the room. That cultivator's clothes were ragged at the moment. He was bleeding from the corner of his mouth. He was even missing an arm. His entire body was covered in bloodstains. He appeared to be in a very sorry state. Moreover, it was obvious that he had suffered very serious injuries. After he came out, he immediately sat cross-legged in the corridor and meditated. It was not that he was daring, nor was it that he believed that the experts of the 3 realms would not harm him. Rather, he had to immediately meditate and recover from his injuries. The door of the room that the injured cultivator had gone to was now closed. Moreover, it was closed very tightly. Clearly, no one was allowed to enter. Seeing this, all the experts waiting in the corridor had mixed feelings. Chapter 464. However, that cultivator's injuries were too severe. He didn't seem to show any signs of waking up after meditating. Everyone knew that the higher one's cultivation was, the harder it was to recover from an injury. Furthermore, this was a severe injury. Even with the help of a divine pill, it would take at least tens of thousands of years for a supreme stage cultivator to recover from a severe injury. However, how could they wait that long? Thus, everyone began to compare themselves with that injured cultivator. If he could come out alive after entering, then cultivators stronger than him wouldn't lose their lives. On the other hand, cultivators weaker than him would naturally give up on entering. However, true experts rarely engaged in meaningless competition. It was very difficult for everyone to make an accurate judgment. Some of the cultivators who felt that they were stronger couldn't hold it in any longer. They all chose a room and entered it. Just like before, as soon as they entered the room, the door closed behind them. However, the door didn't restrict how many cultivators could enter at once. This tempted the weaker cultivators. Those who trusted each other or were familiar with each other grouped together and entered the room. Xiaoling Yu was still thinking about the oppressive feeling in the hall. She didn't pay much attention to the rooms in the corridor. Even he came out alive after entering. We should be fine too. Furthermore, we can enter the same room. It's much safer. Qing Xian said. Hee, let's wait a little longer. These rooms won't disappear. We don't have to rush. Anya also calmed down and said with a smile. After waiting for more than 4 hours, the second group of cultivators who entered the rooms came out one after another. Although the cultivators who entered the room alone were all injured, and most of their injuries were not light, they all came out alive. Some of the less injured cultivators said that after entering the room, they were attacked by a ghost-like existence that appeared out of nowhere. They all fought with all their strength to obtain the final victory. Of course, they also brought out the treasures in the room. What surprised everyone was that the cultivators who entered the room in groups seemed to have gained a great advantage, but they suffered heavy losses. Not only did they come out with serious injuries and were on the verge of death, there were even some who lost their lives in there. After asking around, he found out that the more cultivators that went in, the more ghost-like existences would appear. If the cultivators that went in couldn't work together or form a joint force, then the danger factor would be much higher than going in alone. All the people who'd come here were experts of the 3 dimensions. Normally, none of them were willing to submit to the other, so they didn't have many chances to meet each other. So, how could they possibly gather together to discuss how to work together to kill their enemies? Moreover, after entering the room and encountering danger, the first thing they thought of as a temporary team was how to protect themselves instead of gathering their strength to kill the enemy. From this, it could be seen that the more cultivators that entered a room, the more advantageous it would be, but rather, the more disadvantageous it would be. The teams that had already formed up and were about to enter the rooms naturally dispersed immediately. Everyone chose another room. Fortunately, there were many rooms in this long corridor. Even if the cultivators who came here each chose a room, there would still be some left over. What should we do? Should we split up? Anya asked. If we split up, we will naturally be able to obtain more treasures. Miao Ying, who was very confident in her own strength, said, Then I won't go in. With my strength, I'm afraid I won't be able to protect my old life if I go in alone. Elder Peng shook his head and smiled. Let's all enter the same room together so that we don't have to worry about each other. Xiaoling Yu said firmly. Indeed, if they split up, at least Xiaoling Yu would be worried for the 3 women. The 3 women would definitely be worried for him as well. This would very likely affect their mentality and combat strength. All right, we're a family. Of course, we'll advance and retreat together. Anya said, Yes, we won't be like them, thinking of self-preservation first in the face of danger. Our hearts are connected as a family. Our combat strength will only increase and not decrease. Qing Xian nodded in agreement. As long as I don't die, you'll definitely be safe. Miao Ying said meaningfully. Then let's enter this room. Xiaoling Yu said as he took a step forward and pushed open the door. Other than Elder Peng, who had already decided not to enter, Xiaoling Yu and the 3 women moved almost at the same time. They also passed through the door and entered the room at almost the same time. They all wanted to be the first to enter and be the first to face danger. They wanted to reduce the danger for those who entered later. This was a family. Xiao Lingyu was naturally very pleased and satisfied with the three women's performance. He secretly thought that his previous training had worked. The three women were now powerhouses, and they had never had the habit of being narrow-minded. If they didn't want to accept someone, they would directly reject them. Once they accepted someone, they would treat them as their own and wouldn't scheme against each other. After the four of them entered the room, the door immediately closed. Before they could make a move on the treasures on the table, 6 phantom-like existences automatically appeared in front of the table. There were actually 6 of them, not 4 as they had imagined. This made Xiao Lingyu frown. It was no wonder that those powerhouses who came in teams were beaten so miserably. It turned out that the enemy had a greater advantage in terms of numbers. I'll deal with 3 of them. You guys take care of the other 3. After Xiao Lingyu said that, he directly pounced forward. At the same time, he had already discovered that he couldn't use his consciousness and chaotic domain in this room. Even his aura couldn't leak out too much of his body. The 3 women followed behind, and each took out a powerful magic treasure. For example, Qing Xian's unforgiving divine sword, Miao Ying's blood-colored flute, Qing Xian's Nanhua bowl, and slender divine sword. Xiao Lingyu rushed to the front. He wanted to challenge the 3 phantoms alone, but they all pounced on him at once. Xiao Lingyu didn't retreat. Instead, he swung the silver moon, broken sword around him, wanting to force them all away. However, what he didn't expect was that the 6 phantoms didn't retreat at all. Instead, they braved the silver moon broken sword's sweep and approached Xiao Lingyu. Then they all slapped Xiao Lingyu. The silver moon broken sword swept across the 6 phantoms and instantly cut their bodies into halves. What was even more shocking was that after they slapped Xiao Lingyu, their bodies that were cut into halves actually merged back together perfectly. Moreover, they didn't seem to have suffered any injuries at all. After being slapped by the 6 phantoms, even though Xiao Lingyu was strong and had the protection of the god's robe, he was still sent flying and slammed hard into the wall of the room. After stabilizing himself, Xiao Lingyu didn't have time to feel the pain in his body. He held the silver moon broken sword, and his entire body was bathed in the purple-black chaotic primordial fire. He pounced forward again because the 3 women were now surrounded by the 6 phantoms. The 6 phantoms could have teamed up to deal with the 3 women, but they didn't do so. Instead, they didn't do any defense and attacked Qing Xian at the same time. When Xiao Lingyu pounced over, Qing Xian had already been hit by the 6 phantoms. Her body was also sent flying, but Xiao Lingyu caught her. Qing Xian didn't have a strong body and defense like Xiao Lingyu. After being attacked by the 6 phantoms, she spat out a few mouthfuls of blood in Xiao Lingyu's arms. Only then did her complexion slightly improve. Xiao Lingyu had just caught Qing Xian when Miao, Ying, and Anya were also pushed back to his side. In less than 10 breaths of time after entering the room, the 4 of them, who were monarchs, had already suffered a great loss. This was something they didn't expect before entering the room. After pushing back Xiao Lingyu's group, the 6 phantoms first arranged themselves neatly in front of the table, then pounced towards Xiao Lingyu's group again. These phantoms were really too special. Although they looked very illusory, they had substantial attack power. However, when the cultivators used substantial magic treasures to attack them, it didn't have any effect at all. Even high-grade magic treasures couldn't hurt them in the slightest. Furthermore, the cultivators couldn't use their aura and domain, and their soul power couldn't leak out. How could they fight back? Moreover, the phantoms were extremely fast. At least in terms of short-distance movement, they were at least 10 times faster than Xiao Lingyu. Xiao Lingyu's group of 4 couldn't dodge their attacks at all. At this moment, Xiao Lingyu finally understood why those monarchs who had entered before were beaten to such a state. Those monarchs who had suffered a great loss in the room naturally wouldn't describe everything that they had encountered in the room. They would definitely want to let the cultivators outside who were safe and sound also suffer in the room. Only then would they feel better. Those who had come before would learn from their experiences. However, if their relationship with you is just so-so, Why would they use the experience that they had paid a heavy price in exchange for to tell you who wanted to take advantage of the situation? Xiaoling Yu naturally wouldn't complain that those cultivators who had entered the room didn't explain clearly. He gathered the three girls together and focused on defense. Their defense was almost useless. Those phantoms could even pass through Xiaoling Yu's primal chaos primordial fire without any hindrance. The other defenses that the four of them made could only reduce the impact they had to endure, but they could not deflect the attacks at all or let the attacks dissipate before they could hit them. They could only passively take the attacks. It was actually such an infuriating, grieving, and helpless situation. Everyone calm down. Their attacks aren't actually very strong. At least, they can't kill us, Xiaoling Yu said to the three girls. This was because he felt that the three girls couldn't take it anymore and wanted to rush over and kill them. That Tenchi's design is really too easy to anger, Anya said angrily. This is nothing. With Tenchi's methods, if he really wanted to kill us, we would have been dead by the time we entered. I think he's testing us, and he's been testing us all this time. Even if we make it to the end, we'll still have to face some kind of test, Miaoing said with a bitter smile. Chapter 465. Xiaoling Yu felt that the six illusions were not rearranging themselves out of habit after each attack. There must be something going on over there. Thus, he shouted to the three girls, "Let's go and take over that table." As soon as he finished speaking, Xiaoling Yu and the other three girls moved together and pounced towards the table. The four of them charged together, but the six illusions still only attacked one of them. Furthermore, they did not choose their target. Xiaoling Yu was slightly in front, so he had to endure the attacks of the six illusions. As expected, Xiaoling Yu was sent flying. However, the three girls were sent flying towards the table. However, before they could get into a defensive position or even touch the Dharma treasures on the table, the six illusions had already reacted quickly and forced the three girls back. This time, Xiaoling Yu's defense was quite strong. After being attacked, he only felt his blood and qi churn a little, and he felt a little pain on his skin. However, the three beauties all spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. The four of them gathered together again, and the six illusions lined up neatly in front of the long table again. Then, they pounced towards Xiaoling Yu and the other three girls again. They could only passively defend themselves. Apart from Xiaoling Yu, the injuries of the three girls kept increasing. In order to reduce the pressure on the three girls, Xiaoling Yu took a few steps forward when the six illusions got close, allowing all the attacks to land on his body. Although the illusions were special, their consciousness was not very strong. Every time they chose a target, they would first attack the one closest to them. The three girls also felt sorry for Xiaoling Yu and would rush to the front to receive the attacks of the six illusions. However, the situation in the room was very strange. The four people who came in were actually fighting to take the hits. This was a situation that would never happen in other teams. When faced with the attacks of the illusions, the cultivators of other teams would usually retreat. There were even situations where they pushed their teammates to the front. However, no one would take the initiative to run to the front to block the attacks of the illusions. "Stop fighting, I'll carry it first. When I can't handle it anymore, you guys can carry it one by one," Xiaoling Yu said to the three girls. Although they knew that there was something wrong with the table, there was nothing Xiaoling Yu and the other three could do. Even if they managed to rush to the table, they would be beaten back by the six illusionary figures in the next moment. Xiaoling Yu's will was firmly restricted, and he could not invite the foodie out of the spiritual abode. Based on the current situation, they could only endure. This situation should be the same for the previous teams as well. If those teams could withstand it, Xiaoling Yu felt that there was no reason why her team couldn't. Just as Xiaoling Yu had expected, more than 4 hours had passed, and before he could hold on any longer, the six phantoms once again approached the long table and arranged themselves neatly once more. The long table actually shattered with a loud bang, and the six phantoms pounced towards Xiaoling Yu's group of four even more ferociously than before. Xiaoling Yu and the others could guess that this was the opponent's final attack, and it should also be the strongest attack, so they wanted to block it for the others. Therefore, they all rushed forward at the same time. However, among the four of them, Xiaoling Yu was the fastest. His position was naturally closer to the front, and he became the first choice of the 6 illusionary figures. The 6 illusionary figures all slapped Xiaoling Yu, sending Xiaoling Yu flying. However, they continued to attack the 3 girls. However, after the 3 girls were beaten back, they did not attack Xiaoling Yu and the other 3 girls. Instead, all of them pounced on the door of the room and continuously crashed into it. It was as if they wanted to break the door open and were more eager to escape than Xiaoling Yu and the others. Xiaoling Yu and the others did not know why the 6 illusionary figures were like that. However, after they stabilized their bodies, they suppressed the injuries in their bodies and put away the few jade bottles that were suspended in midair after the long table exploded. Although there was only 1 elixir in each jade bottle, it was definitely a divine elixir. Furthermore, it was not as simple as a low-grade divine elixir. Under the fierce attacks of the 6 illusionary figures, the door of the room finally opened. An extremely powerful force impacted Xiaoling Yu and the others, instantly pushing them out. Then, the door closed, but none of the 6 illusionary figures were able to escape. They were all sealed back into the room. Xiaoling Yu and the others came out. They all vomited a few mouthfuls of blood because of the fierce attacks of the 6 illusionary figures. However, after vomiting blood, Xiaoling Yu did not seem to be heavily injured. The 3 girls only looked a little pale. At least, they were able to stand firmly in the corridor. After the 4 of them came out, many cultivators who had entered the room, especially those who had entered in groups, were very surprised. However, after being surprised, everyone once again recognized the strength of the 4 of them. Elder Peng quickly came up and asked with a face full of concern, "Are you all okay?" "Haha, we're fine. Fortunately, you didn't go in. Otherwise, you might have been trapped inside." Xiaoling Yu shook his head and smiled. Elder Peng saw that Xiaoling Yu and the others' expressions were gradually relaxed. He calmed down and replied with a smile, "Haha, I'm still quite self-aware. This time, I only came to join the fun and broaden my horizons. I didn't have any intention of taking a treasure back." Although Xiaoling Yu and the others were not seriously injured, they still fed themselves a healing elixir. Then, they sat down and meditated to recover from their injuries. Elder Peng stood guard at the side. Perhaps it was because Xiaoling Yu's group of 4 had managed to obtain the treasures without paying a heavy price, which had stimulated everyone's confidence. The cultivators who had been hesitating all chose a room to enter, while the majority of the experts of the 3 realms were currently meditating in the corridor to recover. The rooms in the corridor told everyone that the Tenchi's design did not only test everyone's patience and wisdom. There was also danger waiting for everyone. The first time they encountered danger, many cultivators had already fallen. This made everyone more aware that the treasure was not easy to take away. However, the room in the corridor also told everyone that although the Heavenly Master was powerful, he wasn't bent on killing everyone. He didn't use the divine ability that an ancient expert should have to deal with everyone. This made everyone more confident in continuing the exploration, but they still had to be more careful. Xiaoling Yu and the others were not seriously injured. Moreover, they had higher quality elixirs to treat their injuries. Naturally, they recovered very quickly. After meditating for a few decades, the 4 of them had completely recovered. In this regard, Xiaoling Yu had to thank Mao Zhen, the alchemy grandmaster, for leaving behind the elixirs. The last batch of cultivators who had entered the rooms had already come out. However, like the other cultivators of the 3 realms, everyone was recuperating in the corridor. Xiaoling Yu glanced around. Among the supremes of the 3 realms, the Dragon Emperor's injuries should be the weakest. Moreover, it seemed that he would recover very quickly. The Phoenix Emperor and the Qilin Demon Emperor were not supremes, but they were still superior divine beasts. The quality and defense of their bodies were extremely strong. Although their injuries were more serious than the Dragon Emperor's, it was not a big problem. On the other hand, The supremes of the immortal and demon realms all seemed to be heavily injured. The Ling clan's losses were not great. Their desire for treasures was much weaker than the other clans. Therefore, they only sent a dozen or so cultivators into the rooms. Although 4 of them died because of their lack of strength, it did not have much of an impact on their overall strength. At present, except for the cultivators who did not enter the rooms, the other cultivators were recuperating. As for the cultivators who did not enter the rooms and were not injured, they were all in the hall. They surrounded the 4 statues and looked at them curiously. Xiao Lingyu and the others had already recovered from their injuries. Originally, they could have entered another room to snatch the treasures. However, when they thought of the trouble they would encounter in the room, none of them suggested this. Although the treasures were good and there was no possibility of losing their lives, they really did not want to suffer the ravages of those illusions for the sake of the treasures. The feeling of being beaten without being able to fight back was very uncomfortable. Xiao Lingyu and the others returned to the hall, but the 3 women and Elder Peng still didn't feel anything out of the ordinary. Only Xiao Lingyu felt a strong sense of oppression. These 4 statues are definitely not inanimate objects. Xiao Lingyu reminded herself as she narrowed her eyes and looked at one of the statues. The shapes of the 4 statues were rather special. Xiao Lingyu could not determine whether the statues were humans, demons, or some other species from the statues themselves. However, from the invisible force that they respectively emitted, she could clearly feel that the 4 statues were divided into 2 groups. Each group had 2 statues, and the attributes of the 2 groups should be completely opposite. One group of statues emitted an invisible force that clearly had the attribute of yang, but one of them was very strong and the other was weak. The other group of statues emitted an invisible force that clearly had the attribute of yin, and one of them was strong and the other was weak. The invisible force emitted by the 4 statues was very weak to the perception of ordinary cultivators. Even venerables could not sense it, but Xiao Lingyu could clearly feel it. The 4 invisible forces entangled together, forming a very special aura or domain. It was just like the special magnetic force formed by the Taiji Palace's Taiji birth of yin and yang, or the chaos of yin and yang. Although ordinary cultivators could not sense it, it really existed. Could this be the power of the 4 symbols? Xiao Lingyu frowned and thought. Taiji birth of yin and yang. Yin and yang gave birth to the 4 symbols. The 4 symbols that Xiao Lingyu spoke of were derived from yin and yang. They were Xiaoyin, Taiyin, Xiaoyang, and Taiyang. Yin and yang giving birth to the 4 symbols was actually a kind of chaos principle, but Xiao Lingyu had not fully comprehended it. However, it was very likely that it would be useful here. He immediately displayed the chaos principle that was engraved in the depths of his memory before his eyes, wanting to find some key points from it. The injured cultivators of the 3 realms gradually recovered. Like Xiao Lingyu and the others, the recovered cultivators did not intend to enter the next room to take the treasures. They were not afraid of being trampled on, but they were afraid of losing their lives. This was because they felt that they had more or less been lucky to be able to come out alive last time. The recovered cultivators did not stay in the corridor. They all went to the hall. Naturally, their attention was focused on the statues. Chapter 466. At the end of the corridor was a hall, but there was no path leading to the depths of Taiji Palace. Everyone gathered in the hall, not knowing how to continue exploring Taiji Palace, but the corridor and hall were obviously only the tip of the iceberg. If they did not continue moving forward, no one would be satisfied. After all, in order to open the side door, everyone had used up most of the divine stones they obtained in One Line Sky. As for the treasures obtained in the room in the corridor, they were actually not that rare in the 3 realms. All the powerhouses could guess that there was something wrong with the 4 statues, but they could only stare at them. Some of the bolder ones only dared to touch them. Xiao Lingyu, the only one who had seen through some clues, was now immersed in comprehending the truth of primal chaos. The entire hall was very quiet, and the four statues did not change because of the increase in the number of powerhouses in the hall. I think behind these four statues is the way to go deeper into Taiji Palace. A powerhouse suddenly shouted, and then said, "Everyone, let's move these statues with me." This proposal was approved by most of the cultivators, and everyone moved to the front of one of the statues, and then exerted their strength together, trying to move it. It was unknown what the statue was made of, but it was extremely heavy. Dozens of powerhouses exerted their strength together, but they were unable to make the statue tremble in the slightest. Except for Xiao Yu and a few others, almost all the powerhouses of the three realms exerted their strength, but the statue still did not move. Naturally, everyone exerted more and more strength. Moreover, most of the experts had already begun to circulate their martial arts to increase their strength. When everyone's faces and ears turned red, the statue really did tremble, as if it would move away if it received any more force. However, everyone's attention was focused on this statue, so they did not notice that the other three statues suddenly trembled at this time. "It's already shaking. Let's put in more effort," a powerhouse reminded loudly. All the cultivators exerted the last of their strength, and they really did move the statue a little to the other side. Xiao Yu suddenly woke up from his comprehension because he felt that the power of the four symbols in the hall had changed greatly. If the power of the four symbols was only entangled to form an indistinct and stable domain before, the power of the four symbols was now a little chaotic. However, this was something that the other powerhouses could not sense. What are they doing? Xiao Yu couldn't help but be surprised when she saw the experts of the three realms working together to move the statue. They said there was a way behind the statue, so they wanted to push the statue away. Anya replied, "Nonsense, this statue can't be touched so easily. Let's get out of here." After recovering from her shock, Xiao Yu immediately used her inner power to wrap around the people around her and was about to leave the hall. However, they didn't realize that the door leading to the corridor had disappeared. Now, all four walls of the hall were sealed. It's too late. Xiao Yu had just turned around when she stopped moving. The statue had been moved 2 fingers wide, and it did look like there was a door behind it. However, before everyone could rejoice, the statue that had been moved suddenly exploded. Following that, an extremely monstrous monster appeared before everyone's eyes. It released an extremely powerful aura that pushed all of the cultivators away. Everyone was shocked at this moment. While they were still in shock, the other 3 statues exploded at the same time. The 4 statues were replaced by 4 strange-looking monsters. These monsters were all big and round. It was impossible to tell which species they belonged to just by looking at their appearance. Moreover, it felt like their bodies were pieced together from the limbs of many wild beasts. For example, the monster that was blown up by the moving statue had the head of a hippopotamus, the body of a crocodile, the arms of a frog-like creature, and the legs of cow. Although their bodies looked like they were randomly pieced together, the aura of the 4 monsters was very pure and not messy at all. Moreover, their auras were very powerful, giving people a feeling that they were invincible. It was obvious that the strength of these 4 monsters was at least a level higher than that of a supremacy. Through the gaps in the bodies of these 4 monsters, everyone could vaguely see that there was a door behind each of them. However, these 4 monsters were like the 4 statues from before. They blocked the door firmly and had no intention of letting everyone leave easily. Sensing the strength of the 4 monsters, the experts of the 3 realms in the hall gathered into their own groups. They all looked at the 4 monsters with solemn expressions. However, they were not prepared to unite as one. In truth, it was impossible for them to unite as one. They could only try to cooperate with their own side. The 4 monsters did not give everyone too much time to think of a countermeasure. After 10 breaths of time after they appeared, they let out a roar together. Then, each of them released an invisible force that instantly created an extremely powerful domain in the hall. This domain was many times stronger than the 4 symbols domain from before. Everyone could clearly feel the enormous pressure. Even Shaoling Yu felt that it was a little difficult to withstand this four symbols domain. His chaotic domain had only been released for less than 2 breaths before it was crushed by the four symbols domain. The other powerhouses of the 3 realms could not release their domains at all. Under the envelopment of the four symbols domain, cultivators whose cultivation had not reached the venerable rank were practically unable to move. Even venerable rank powerhouses' speed was reduced by more than half, and their strength was suppressed by more than 50%. This made everyone even more fearful, and they could not muster up the courage to attack. After the four symbols domain was formed, the true attacks of the 4 monsters began. Streaks of pure light that were either Xiao Yang, Xiao Yin, Yang, or Lunar Yin were shot out by them and attacked everyone at an extremely fast speed. Moreover, the 4 monsters' attacks came wave after wave as if they would not stop at all. Their attacks were supported by the 4 symbols domain, while the powerhouses of the 3 realms were restricted by the 4 symbols domain. The 4 monsters were already much stronger than everyone in terms of cultivation. Even though the powerhouses of the 3 realms had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers, the situation was still extremely dangerous. Everyone huddled together to defend. But as soon as the defensive light barrier was set up, it would be destroyed by the streaks of light, and then their defensive treasures would be sent flying. Shaoling Yu turned the primordial chaos fire into a purplish-black fire dragon to surround the few of them, and then attacked the incoming streaks of light with the 3 girls. Everyone could still resist for a while, but if the attacks continued, they would definitely not be able to hold on for long. This is definitely not the way to go. We have to counterattack to survive. At this moment, the Dragon Emperor shouted, and then a golden bead appeared above his head. The golden bead projected a golden light screen that enveloped his entire body. He no longer blocked the attacks of the light streams. Instead, he took out a golden bone spear and attacked the monster closest to him. Surprisingly, when the powerful streaks of light hit the Dragon Emperor's golden light barrier, they could only cause the light barrier to tremble, but were unable to break it immediately. Moreover, the golden light barrier continued to protect the Dragon Emperor's body after withstanding more than 10 streaks of light consecutively. Even when the Dragon Emperor was in front of it, the monster did not move at all. It only waved its palm and slapped at the Dragon Emperor. The golden bone spear stabbed at the monster's huge and solid palm. Surprisingly, the golden bone spear easily pierced through the monster's palm, but the monster's palm still quickly slapped down, following the bone spear and fiercely slapping the golden pearl floating above the Dragon Emperor's head. After being slapped by the monster's palm, the golden pearl suddenly trembled, and the golden light barrier that it released to cover the Dragon Emperor's body also disappeared. The other 3 monsters shot dozens of streaks of light at the Dragon Emperor, as if they wanted to take advantage of the Dragon Emperor's weak defense to kill him. If the Dragon Emperor took these dozens of streaks of light head-on, even if he did not die, he would most likely be seriously injured. At such a critical juncture, anyone would want to see the Dragon Emperor injured. After all, he was the main force resisting these monsters. If he was injured or killed in battle, it would not benefit anyone at all. Therefore, the powerhouses of the 3 realms took action at the same time, using various treasures and magical abilities to intercept the streaks of light that were attacking the Dragon Emperor. Under the efforts of the powerhouses of the 3 realms, only a few streaks of light hit the Dragon Emperor, but the Dragon Emperor's golden soft armor blocked them. Everyone, attack the monsters next to you. They are not immortal, nor are they undefeatable. The Dragon Emperor pulled out his golden bone spear and shouted at everyone as he retreated. The first to respond to the Dragon Emperor were naturally the powerhouses of the Shifter clan. After that, they followed the Dragon Emperor and continued to attack the monster whose palm was already injured. Perhaps the golden bone spear piercing through the monster's palm gave everyone confidence. But without the Dragon Emperor's reminder, all the powerhouses of the 3 realms began to counterattack the monsters nearby. Everyone was not as strong as the Dragon Emperor. Even if they could hit the immobile monsters with all their might, they could only make the monsters cry out in pain at most, and could not cause any substantial damage. During the counterattack, their defense would naturally drop a lot. The four monsters did not defend and only attacked. Therefore, when everyone hit the four monsters, it was inevitable that they would be hit by the streaks of light. Late-stage Emperors would be seriously injured even if they did not die from the streaks of light, while Supremacies would most likely be sent flying and vomit blood. The only weakness of these four monsters was that they couldn't move, so the attacks of the experts of the three realms could easily land on them. However, every time the experts of the three realms attacked them, they would definitely suffer great losses. But no matter what, they had no other choice. They could only continue like this. Xiaoling Yu and the others also participated in the counterattack, but Xiaoling Yu did not give up on defense. Furthermore, he was in charge of defense, while Anya attacked with merciless divine sword. Chapter 467. Xiaoling Yu's Primal Chaos Primordial Fire and Qing Xian's Nanhua Alms Bowl were both able to weaken or forcefully withstand the attacks. However, the four monsters' counterattacks were too fierce. Sometimes, they couldn't defend themselves, and one or two streams of light would land on them from time to time. They knew that Emperor-level powerhouses would find it difficult to withstand the attacks of those streams of light, so they protected Elder Peng in the center. Xiaoling Yu, who was fully focused on defense, would also block the streams of light that could break through, allowing most of the streams of light to hit him. Xiaoling Yu also keenly discovered that the fiercer everyone's counterattacks were, the stronger the four symbols domain in the hall became. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before even the Emperor-level powerhouses would be unable to move. However, there weren't many of the three realms powerhouses who were truly using their full strength. For example, the Dragon Emperor could activate his innate divine ability. The Dragon Emperor was now at the Emperor level. Once he used his innate divine ability, it would have a powerful space-time seal effect and would definitely greatly weaken the power of the four symbols. However, if he really activated his innate divine ability, he would usher in a period of weakness for a long time. In this perilous place where the Tenchi's treasure was hidden, under the watchful eyes of the three realms powerhouses, the Dragon Emperor probably wouldn't activate his innate divine ability unless his life was in danger. As the four symbols domain continued to strengthen, the restrictions on everyone also increased. Everyone's attacks also became weaker and weaker. Fortunately, the attacks of those streams of light didn't become stronger as the four symbols domain strengthened. Although the three realms powerhouses continued to suffer losses, they were still able to hold on. On the other hand, the four monsters still stood in their original positions, firmly blocking the four entrances. The attacks of the three realms powerhouses had already caused them to be covered in wounds. Moreover, streams of foul blood continuously flowed from their wounds. However, their combat strength seemed to be very sufficient, and their fighting spirit was also very high. However, the attacks of these four monsters were a little too simple. Under the blockade of the four symbols domain, they only transformed various kinds of pure energy into streams of light to bombard everyone. If these four monsters' attacks were a little more powerful, or if their attacks were just a little more powerful, the three realms powerhouses would probably be wiped out very quickly. Tenchi might have done this on purpose. He didn't want to kill all the juniors who had entered the hall. He just wanted to eliminate some of the weaker ones. While defending with all his might, Xiaoling Yu was also observing the situation in the hall. He realized that it was useless to continue attacking like this. If they could not resolve the restrictions of the four symbols domain, it would be impossible for them to achieve victory. Before they could kill these four monsters, they would probably be wiped out. Many experts of the three dimensions had already realized this problem. When they saw more and more casualties, they silently withdrew their forces and only paid attention to their own safety. They no longer took the risk of counterattacking. Such a situation was inevitable. No one would want to sacrifice themselves in exchange for the advancement of other experts. The stronger one was, the more selfish they were. Even if everyone worked together, they might not be able to defeat these four monsters, Not to mention each of them had their own plans. Some of the cultivators no longer dared to attack, so the situation became even more passive. The damage they had dealt to the four monsters before was not enough to make them lose their combat effectiveness. Even if Xiaoling Yu did not care about the other cultivators, he had to think about himself and the others. In the end, he invited the chaos beast, Fudi, out. As soon as Fudi appeared, it unleashed its 7 stars domain under Xiaoling Yu's instructions. Xiaoling Yu then unleashed his chaos domain. The two domains quickly merged together. Under the suppression of the 4 symbols domain, they actually lasted for a full 10 breaths before collapsing. Previously, when Xiaoling Yu released his chaos domain alone, it could only last for 2 breaths. Now that the 2 special domains were combined, it naturally lasted for a longer time. Although it could not completely cancel out the 4 symbols domain, nor could it really resist it, 10 breaths was not a short time. Moreover, the domain formed by Xiaoling Yu and Fudi could completely cover the hall, which was large but could not be considered vast. In this way, in these 10 breaths, all the cultivators of the 3 realms would no longer be restricted by the 4 symbols domain. Naturally, Xiaoling Yu would not use his domain to restrain them. When Xiaoling Yu and Fudi released their dual domains again, all the cultivators of the 3 realms did not need him to remind them. They attacked the 4 monsters together. With the dual domains resisting, the flowing light of the 4 monsters naturally weakened a lot. At least, the cultivators of the supremacy level would not be affected. A round of attacks from the cultivators of the 3 realms only took 2 to 3 breaths. After a round of attacks, they would defend with all their strength under Xiaoling Yu's reminder. When their defense was solid, the dual domains would be destroyed by the 4 symbols domain. However, in another 2 breaths, the dual domains would be formed again. The cultivators of the 3 realms would have another 3 breaths of time to attack. In this way, although there would still be casualties, the losses would be minimized. Moreover, the cultivators who could defeat the 4 monsters were more confident in their victory. They would attack with all their strength. It was impossible for the 4 monsters to not have any intelligence and battle awareness. They also realized that if this continued, the situation would be extremely disadvantageous for them. They could also determine who had released the dual territory. Therefore, after using the 4 symbols territory to defeat the dual territory, they shifted the focus of their attacks to Xiaoling Yu and Fudi. Everyone, help them defend. They are our hope of survival. The Dragon Emperor could see the overall situation clearly. Therefore, when countless flowing light flew towards Xiaoling Yu, he waved his golden bone spear and swept out a large amount of golden light to help Xiaoling Yu and Fudi defend. Although the cultivators of the 3 realms could be very selfish at times, the current situation did not allow them to make a second choice. They all consciously attacked the flowing light. Even with the help of the cultivators of the 3 realms, before the dual domains were formed again, more than 10 flowing light blasted onto Xiaoling Yu and Fudi. Xiaoling Yu only endured 3 flowing light attacks. However, because Fudi's body was huge and could cover a large area, he endured 13 flowing light attacks. 3 golden lights hit his body. Even though Xiaoling Yu had the protection of the divine clothes, he was still sent flying. His body slammed heavily into the wall of the hall. His face was pale as he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Of the 13 streaks of light, a few of them struck the back of the Fudi's carapace, but the carapace blocked them. However, the remaining streaks of light struck the sides of the carapace. Not only did they destroy the beautiful and smooth fur of the Fudi, but they also created a few bloody holes in the carapace. Fudi roared angrily. After a flash of chaotic light, the bloody holes all disappeared. The dual domains appeared again, and the cultivators of the 3 realms attacked again. After 10 breaths, the dual domains were defeated by the 4 symbols domain. The 4 monsters once again attacked Xiaoling Yu and Fudi with dozens of flowing light attacks. If this continued, although it looked like they could win, the Fudi would definitely pay a heavy price for it. Even Xiaoling Yu would not feel good about it. However, other than this, there was really no other way. Xiao Yu made this choice because he wanted to save his own life. He was not trying to save others out of kindness. Moreover, the other cultivators of the three realms were also attacking, so he had nothing to complain about. After repeating this for more than 10 times, Fudi's injuries continued to worsen. Xiao Yu felt that he could not hold on any longer. Although the four monsters were riddled with holes, they still blocked the entrance. Their bodies were on the verge of collapse, and it seemed like they could fall at any time. Xiao Yu did not persist. Instead, he sent Fudi into his spiritual abode. Then, he defended with all his might with the three girls. The pressure of the four symbols domain restricted the cultivators of the three realms again. The cultivators of the three realms could not adapt for a while, and they suffered heavy injuries again. Thus, some of the cultivators of the three realms began to complain about Xiao Yu and Fudi. They complained that they did not persist until the end because victory seemed to be close at hand. Xiao Yu naturally ignored the complaints of the cultivators of the three realms. In fact, he despised them very much. If they were the ones who persisted, they would have given up long ago. I have done what I should do. The rest is up to you, fellow cultivators. Xiao Yu's light voice spread to every corner of the hall. The cultivators of the three realms began to have their own thoughts. They only cared about their own defense and attack from time to time. Although the situation returned to before Xiao Yu and Fudi set up the dual domains, the four monsters were already too heavily injured. In the end, they fell one after another. The four monsters fell on the floor of the hall. Their bodies twitched continuously, and their life auras became weaker and weaker. The cultivators of the three realms had gone through such a difficult battle to obtain victory. Now that the doors were open, they naturally rushed in with all their might. In just a short moment, only Xiao Yu's group of experts from the three dimensions remained in the hall. Of course, this was not because Xiao Yu and the others were slow to react, but because the four monsters had already fallen. Xiao Yu and the others first heaved a sigh of relief. Then, they wanted to see if there were any other situations, so they were not in a hurry to enter the doors. This was due to caution. However, seeing that the cultivators of the three realms did not encounter any accidents after entering the doors, Xiao Yu and the others were relieved. However, just as they were about to enter a door and leave the hall, Elder Peng pointed at a fallen monster and shouted, "Look, what is that?" Xiao Yu and the three girls looked in the direction Elder Peng was pointing. They saw a special and indistinguishable energy surging out of the monster's body. It slowly floated to the center of the hall. When they looked at the other three monsters, they saw that they were in the same situation. The four special energies gathered together in the air of the hall and intertwined with each other. Gradually, they formed a vortex made of black and white. This situation was too strange. Xiao Yu and the others first stood in a doorway. Then, they narrowed their eyes and stared at the vortex, waiting to see what would happen. In less than 100 breaths, the bodies of the four monsters had disappeared. Naturally, there was no more special energy surging out. The vortex in the center of the hall gradually condensed into a round mirror. Chapter 468. After the small round mirror was formed, it only floated in the air for a moment before it fell from the sky. Xiao Yu did not know if he was worried that the round mirror would break, or if he felt that the round mirror was too magical, but he quickly rushed over and caught it in his hands. The three girls and Elder Peng also surrounded him and stared at the small round mirror curiously. "Is this a magic treasure?" Anya asked in surprise. "It should be a magic treasure, and its quality is extremely high. It doesn't seem to be a divine artifact," Elder Peng, who was a blacksmith grandmaster, answered. "If it's not a divine artifact, what is it? Could it be an immortal artifact or demonic artifact?" Qing Xian asked in confusion. "Well, I'm not sure. It should be a divine artifact, which is one level higher than a supreme-grade divine artifact." Elder Peng shook his head and guessed. "A divine artifact? It's so powerful," Anya said in surprise. "Let's try and see if it can recognize an owner." I think it should be the reward for the Celestial Master's design for this stage. We fought so hard for this stage, and the experts of the three realms worked together and paid such a heavy price. This mirror is definitely not simple. Elder Peng then reminded. Shaolin Yu nodded and then dripped a drop of blood essence that contained a wisp of his soul onto the round mirror. As expected, the drop of blood essence disappeared in an instant, and Shaolin Yu quickly felt that he had a mental connection with the round mirror. With a thought, the small round mirror suddenly disappeared from Shaolin Yu's hands and was kept in his body. With another thought, the small round mirror appeared in his hands again. After the blood recognition, Shaolin Yu could already control it freely. This made Shaolin Yu very satisfied. You can already control it without refining it. That's great, Elder Peng praised. It should be more suitable for me. I feel that its attributes are similar to mine, so we are more compatible. Shaolin Yu explained with a smile. As if to verify his words, he channeled some of his power into the round mirror. However, what Shaolin Yu did not expect was that as soon as he poured his power in the round mirror through his palm, the round mirror automatically emitted a suction force, pulling all the power in Shaolin Yu's body and pouring it into it. After absorbing more than half of Shaolin Yu's power, the round mirror finally stopped. Then it suddenly trembled and flew into the air from his palm. Then it released 4 waves of strange energy. The 4 strange energies flew in 4 different directions and turned into the shadows of 4 monsters. The phantoms of the 4 monsters in front of him looked similar to the 4 monsters that appeared after the shattered statues. The only difference was that the previous 4 monsters were corporeal, and the aura of these 4 phantoms was much weaker than the corporeal monsters. The 4 corporeal monsters were a level stronger than a supreme grade, and the aura of these 4 phantoms was comparable to a supreme grade. The most shocking thing was that these 4 phantoms could also release the 4 symbols territory. Although the 4 symbols territory was not as strong as the one that enveloped the hall earlier, it was not much weaker than the dual territory formed by Shaolin Yu and the Foodie. Naturally, this phantom's territory did not affect Shaolin Yu at all. Moreover, it was controlled by Shaolin Yu's thoughts. In this way, Shaolin Yu had 4 more supreme grade helpers, and his territory had become even stronger. However, this required more than half of his power to form, so it was better not to use it easily. Attack them separately. Don't worry, they won't fight back, Shaolin Yu said to the 3 ladies and Elder Peng. Although the 3 ladies and Elder Peng were subconsciously worried, they still braced themselves and attacked 1 monster each. The 4 phantoms were truly miraculous. Even when Anya attacked with Unforgiven, she was unable to disperse them. They were actually the same as the phantoms in the hallway, able to ignore material attacks. As for soul attacks and aura attacks, they could only be used against them without being affected by the 4 symbols domain, and they were not necessarily effective. Haha, our strength has increased greatly again. Brother Xiao and the Foodie did not work for nothing, Elder Peng said with a smile. The 3 ladies were also delighted. The 4 phantoms only existed for less than 10 minutes before they disappeared one after another. The round mirror was kept by Shaolin Yu and refined with the chaotic primordial fire. According to Elder Peng's speculation, the small round mirror was a divine artifact. It should have been extremely difficult to refine, but it did not resist the chaotic primordial fire at all. Moreover, it seemed to be very obedient under the chaotic primordial fire's protection. Shaolin Yu could vaguely guess the reason for this. Shaolin Yu and the others were not in a hurry to move forward. They first meditated and recuperated in the doorway. When their injuries were more or less healed, they moved forward through the doorway. The doorway was neither tall nor wide, and it was not very long. Shaolin Yu and the others only took 100 steps to reach the end of the doorway. When they reached the end of the doorway, their eyes suddenly opened up, and an extremely spacious hall appeared in front of them. From the size of the hall, it was obvious that it was the most spacious hall in the entire Dual Extreme Hall. It took up 2/3 of the entire Dual Extreme Hall. The layout of the hall was very simple. In the center of the hall was a huge cauldron, and there were 8 tall, fiery red stone pillars around the cauldron. Each stone pillar was connected to the cauldron by a thick iron chain, and there were mysterious wrinkles on the pillars and chains. The stone pillars and cauldron were very calm at this moment, but everyone could see that the mysterious runes engraved on the pillars and chains were still faintly flowing. At this moment, the experts of the 3 dimensions that had entered earlier were surrounding the cauldron and the stone pillar as they observed it. However, after the lesson they'd learned from the statue in the hall, they didn't dare rashly touch anything in the hall and only observed it extremely carefully. Perhaps it was because they had been very eye-catching before, but now that Xiao Lingyu and the others had entered the hall, all the cultivators looked at them with complicated expressions. Xiao Lingyu did not feel any sense of superiority. Moreover, he knew that in this kind of treasure trove where opportunities were sought, the more eye-catching and the stronger one was, the easier it was to become a public enemy. If things went wrong, they would be surrounded and attacked by everyone. However, after obtaining the mirror, he was more confident than before, so he could calmly face everyone's gazes. Xiao Lingyu did not approach the cauldron and the pillars. Instead, he carefully scanned the hall again. The door of the hall was closed at this time. It would not be easy to leave this hall. On the wall facing the door, there was a golden plaque hanging on it. On it were the words 2 Extremes Hall. At first glance, there was nothing special about the 3 words. However, if one looked at it more closely, they would discover that there seemed to be a circle of yin-yang fish appearing from time to time. Xiao Lingyu thought that this plaque was not simple, but he did not look at it any longer. Instead, he looked at other places. Although the walls on the left and right were also golden without any other colors, if one looked carefully, they would also see a circle of yin-yang taiji faintly appearing. As for the ground, although it was also golden, there were many patterns engraved on it. The patterns on the ground included flowers, trees, fish, insects, flying cranes, and clouds. There was nothing special about them. However, there were also some dragons, phoenixes, and some demonic beasts that Xiao Lingyu had never seen before. They were either baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, or flying in the air, which somewhat destroyed the peaceful content of the patterns on the ground. After looking at these, Xiao Lingyu and the others went to the area between the cauldron and the pillars. At this time, most of the cultivators had already looked through the hall. After finding nothing, they each chose a secluded corner to meditate and recuperate. The cauldron was about 30 feet tall, and the diameter of the cauldron was about 40 feet. However, there were 8 cauldron legs that were only 3 feet tall. The 8 iron chains that extended from the fiery red pillars were each tied to a leg of the cauldron. Not only were there complicated runes engraved around the cauldron, there were also some powerful divine beast patterns. The cauldron's name was engraved in the direction of the door, 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron. There were no other depictions, and there were no written instructions in the entire hall. No one dared to move, but if there was no action, why did they come to the 2 Extremes Hall? How are they going to leave? These experts of the 3 realms were actually waiting for others to take action, because in most cases, whoever took action first will be the first to suffer. Those who took action later could act according to the circumstances, just like in the corridor from before. Xiao Lingyu leaped into the air and looked down at the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron from above the hall. However, he found that the mouth of the cauldron was sealed by a slowly flowing black and white Tai Chi diagram. He couldn't see what was hidden inside the cauldron. After carefully observing for a while, Xiao Lingyu didn't dare to rashly touch the Tai Chi diagram at the mouth of the cauldron. Instead, he took out a devil's crystal and threw it down. Unexpectedly, before the devil's crystal could even touch the Tai Chi diagram at the mouth of the cauldron, it had already evaporated into a wisp of devil spirit energy and disappeared without a trace. Xiao Lingyu threw another piece of low-grade divine stone down, but in the end, this divine stone evaporated just like the magic crystal stone. Xiao Lingyu stopped and pondered for a while with a frown. He thought of the Tai Chi diagram at the side of the beam and sent a wisp of chaotic energy down. The chaotic energy sank directly into the Tai Chi diagram, but it caused the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron to tremble violently. Then, a powerful aura flew out from the mouth of the cauldron. Xiao Lingyu was so frightened that he immediately retreated and landed on the ground. The powerful aura didn't attack Xiao Lingyu. Instead, it shot to the top of the hall and bounced back down. In the air between the mouth of the cauldron and the top of the hall, the aura transformed into a long sword that shone with divine light. The long sword was about 8 feet long and 4 fingers wide. As soon as it appeared, it automatically released waves of fierce sword intent, and a ring of sword force enveloped the entire hall. Elder Peng narrowed his eyes and took a look, then said in surprise, "It seems to be a supreme-grade divine sword." After the divine sword appeared, the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron stopped trembling, but all the experts of the 3 realms looked at the divine sword. When he heard Elder Peng's words, the late-stage immortal venerable from the immortal world directly charged forward. Chapter 469. Supreme-grade divine artifacts were extremely rare in the current 3 realms. Many exalts used medium-grade divine artifacts as magic treasures. There were plenty of supreme-grade divine tools left behind by the ancient experts, but after many years of separation, more and more cultivators ascended to the divine world. Few of them were willing to leave behind their divine tools, unless it was the inheritance of some sect or clan. As a result, there were fewer and fewer high-grade divine tools in the 3 realms. After all, even a master blacksmith like Elder Peng could only refine mid-grade divine tools at most. Naturally, the experts of the 3 realms coveted the supreme-grade divine sword that flew out of the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron. Xiao Lingyu would never give up on good treasures. This supreme-grade divine sword was certainly a good treasure. Therefore, he rushed forward again after landing. But at this moment, the late immortal venerable had already grasped the supreme-grade divine sword in his hand and swung it in a circle around him. Although the late-stage immortal venerable had yet to refine the supreme-grade divine sword, the supreme-grade divine sword's power and sharpness wasn't something ordinary experts would dare to take head-on. Therefore, most of the experts of the 3 realms who had flown over had retreated. But in the next moment, almost all of the experts of the 3 realms, except for Fairy Lan Yao, Hu Yunzi, and the experts of Sword Sect, attacked the late immortal venerable. Only then did the late immortal venerable realize that he had picked up a hot potato, but since he had already obtained the treasure, he wasn't willing to give it up. With so many experts attacking him at the same time, he might be able to withstand the first wave, but it would be extremely difficult for him to withstand the second and third wave. Being the target of public criticism in the main hall was definitely not going to end well. The late immortal venerable struck out a divine talisman. The divine talisman quickly turned into a circle of golden light. Although it was broken by the attacks of everyone, he was able to withstand the first wave of attacks with the help of the divine talisman. Before they could attack again, the late immortal venerable threw the sword aside. Naturally, they wouldn't attack the late immortal venerable. Instead, they rushed towards the supreme-grade divine sword at the same time. Only the late immortal venerable remained motionless, staring coldly at the other cultivators. Xiao Lingyu had originally wanted to snatch it as well, but he didn't want to be attacked by the joint forces of the 3 realms. Although he might be able to withstand their attacks, it would definitely consume a great deal of his energy, and he might even be injured. In such a dangerous place, he needed them to be in their best condition at all times, and they couldn't rashly take risks. So Xiao Lingyu didn't move, and this time, the supreme great sword was caught by the Dragon Emperor. Yin Xiang, the Xuanwu tortoise, and the other experts of the Fiend race all stopped and surrounded the Dragon Emperor, helping the Dragon Emperor resist the attacks of the other experts. The late immortal venerable didn't continue to watch coldly. Instead, he joined the other human experts in attacking the demon race. As for the experts of the spirit race who didn't have a venerable, they were hesitating. They didn't stand on the side of the demon race, as though they were still brooding over the fact that the demon race didn't stand up for them when Xiaoling Yu and the others bullied the spirit race. In fact, the demon clan was the most well-prepared when they came to the celestial master's hiding place to seize the treasures. They also had the greatest number of experts from the demon clan. They had the home ground advantage, but the demon clan's emperor-level experts had suffered heavy losses at the beginning. Furthermore, they had fewer supremacy-level experts than the celestial world and demon world. If they continued to fight like this, unless a few demon emperors went all out and activated their innate divine powers, it would be extremely difficult to resist the joint attack of the experts from the celestial world and demon world. It hadn't been long since they entered the place where the Tenchi's treasure was hidden. There must be other opportunities later. The Dragon Emperor and the other demon emperors wouldn't be willing to use their innate ability for a supreme-grade divine sword. Therefore, after assessing the situation, the Dragon Emperor shouted to Xiaoling Yu, "Brother Xiao, please help us." The reason why the Dragon Emperor shouted was naturally because the demon race had an agreement with Xiaoling Yu and the others. Xiaoling Yu naturally wouldn't go back on his words. Although the supreme-grade divine sword was good, it wasn't necessary for him to get it. Therefore, he and the others joined the ranks of the demon race, helping the demon race resist the attacks from the experts of the immortal world and devil world. Xiaoling Yu and the others didn't attack the experts of the immortal world and devil world. They only helped the demon race defend. Even so, the situation was immediately reversed. After all, other than Elder Peng, they were all venerable realm experts. Seeing this, the experts of the immortal world and devil world stopped one after another. If they continued fighting like this, it wouldn't benefit them at all. It would only increase their consumption. If the demon emperors were angered and used their innate ability, some of them would definitely lose their lives here. After the experts of the immortal world and devil world stopped fighting, the supreme-grade, divine sword naturally belonged to the Dragon Emperor and the demon race. After the two sides confronted each other for a while, they each retreated to a corner of the main hall, no longer intending to continue fighting. The Dragon Emperor represented the demon race and said to Xiaoling Yu, "Thank you for your help." Xiaoling Yu waved his hand indifferently and said, "No need to thank us. We helped you this time, so you will naturally have the opportunity to help us in the future." The Dragon Emperor smiled and said, "Of course." Why did the cauldron suddenly spit out a supreme-grade divine sword? The Phoenix Emperor asked, puzzled. "I'm not sure about this either. Tenchi probably hid some treasures inside. With a little vibration, those treasures will fly out." Xiaoling, you guessed. There are probably other treasures inside. We might as well continue to shake the cauldron. The Dragon Emperor's eyes flashed. This time it was a treasure that came out. Next time, it might be a powerful monster. Xiaoling Yu smiled non-committally. It shouldn't be, right? The Phoenix Emperor's expression was a little worried. We'll know when we try again. Xiaoling Yu responded and flew above the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron with the demon race experts. Then, everyone attacked the Tai Chi diagram at the mouth of the cauldron at the same time. After being shaken, a powerful aura gushed out of the mouth of the cauldron again. That aura then turned into a ray of light, and the ray of light turned into a golden bowl-shaped magic treasure. It's a supreme-grade divine artifact. Elder Peng exclaimed, slightly shocked. Just as Elder Peng exclaimed, the golden bowl was already in Yin Xiang's hand. With this supreme-grade defensive divine artifact, my divine tribulation should be worry-free. As Yin Xiang spoke, he dripped his blood essence on the golden bowl as if there was no one else around. Although the demon emperors were unhappy, Yin Xiang had made a great contribution to the demon race after all. Moreover, he was also a supreme-grade expert. Therefore, the demon race experts did not raise any objections to Yin Xiang obtaining the golden bowl. They even congratulated him with smiles on their faces. Xiaoling Yu was also a little unhappy. After all, the divine sword had already been given to the demon race. Logically speaking, the golden bowl should belong to them. However, since it was a collaboration, he did not care so much. Moreover, Yin Xiang had helped them before. Most importantly, there should be many more magic treasures in the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. There was no need to rush. The experts from both the immortal world and the demon world looked helpless. Even if they joined forces, they could not fight against the demon race and Shaolin Yu. They could only watch as the treasures that flew out of the cauldron were snatched away by others. The two supreme-grade divine artifacts greatly stimulated the greed of the demon race experts. Moreover, the cauldron did not show any abnormalities after being shaken twice. This made the demon race experts feel more at ease and shook the cauldron again. However, when the third supreme-grade divine artifact flew out, the Tai Chi diagram at the mouth of the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron suddenly collapsed. Then, a very strange energy fluctuation instantly spread throughout the entire hall. Then, the entire hall began to shake. Shaolin Yu had long guessed that there must be a problem with the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron constantly shaking. Therefore, when the Tai Chi diagram collapsed, he cautiously led the three women and Elder Peng to a corner of the hall and set up a defensive formation. As for the third supreme-grade divine artifact, it was snatched away by the Elder, transformed from the Black Tortoise. Moreover, he did not hesitate to drip blood on it to claim ownership. Now that the Two Extremes Palace was in an abnormal situation, Shaolin Yu was not in the mood to pursue the ownership of the supreme-grade divine artifacts. His intuition told him that another bitter battle was coming. No monsters or danger came out of the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. Instead, the demon beasts that were originally engraved on the ground of the hall strangely leaped out from the ground. These demon beasts all exuded powerful auras. Moreover, after they appeared, they pounced on the experts of the three realms. These demon beasts that were engraved on the ground did not seem to think that they were of the same family as the demon realm's demon race. They attacked the demon race's experts without mercy. It was as if they were going to kill all the cultivators who invaded the Two Extremes Palace. Shaolin Yu only had a few people. Moreover, with their backs against the wall of the Two Extremes Palace, they were a small target. They would not take the initiative to attack the demon beasts, much less help anyone. The various experiences from before told Shaolin Yu that the most important mission in the Tenchi's treasure trove was to protect themselves. The experts of the three realms once again gathered in their own groups. However, the experts of the immortal realm and demon realm gathered together. They should have realized that they had to cooperate. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to obtain great benefits in the end. There were not many demon beasts that leaped out from the ground. There were only 7 or 8 of them. However, each of them was very powerful. However, they could not compare to the 4 monsters in the hall from before. They should all be late-stage Venerable Realm. The experts of the 3 realms were now grouped into 3 groups. Each group had at least 2 demon beasts attacking. Shaolin Yu's group also had 2 demon beasts. However, the pressure on everyone was not very great. This was because these demon beasts did not use any powerful divine abilities. They only charged with their bodies. However, what surprised the experts of the 3 realms was that after the demon beasts were killed, they would melt into the ground and turn back into engravings. However, after a few moments, they would leap out of the ground again. Moreover, their strength was not reduced in the slightest. The 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron and the entire hall continued to tremble. The talisman patterns on the 8 stone pillars and iron chains also circulated faster and shone with a strange light. At the same time, Shaolin Yu keenly noticed that the golden plaque and the yin-yang Tai Chi diagram hidden in the hall had clearly lit up. It was obvious that there was a high-level formation in the Two Extremes Palace. If they did not break the formation and just killed these demon beasts, they would not be able to escape danger. Moreover, these demon beasts were probably endless. Chapter 470. After those monsters were killed, they would crawl out of the ground in a few moments. They were almost immortal, but the experts of the 3 realms would have to expend a lot of energy to kill them. After all, they were all in the supremacy realm. Not only did the monstrous beasts cause the experts of the three realms to be exhausted, they also caused quite a few casualties. The monstrous beasts wouldn't just stand there and allow the experts to attack them. Their ferocious and fearless attacks would definitely cause quite a bit of damage as well. If this continued, the experts of the three realms would probably be exhausted to death. Xiao Lingyu wasn't afraid. He just set up the purplish-black, primordial flame in front of them. Those monsters would be heavily injured before they could even reach them. They wouldn't be able to fight much. Xiao Lingyu and the others didn't expend a lot of energy either. The demon race and the spirit race were gathered together. They had more people, so naturally they would be attacked in a larger area. This would also attract the attention of the monsters. The longer this dragged on, the greater their losses would be. The demon emperors were very anxious. They were also looking for a way to get out of this predicament. The doors of the two extremes palace were tightly shut. Before Xiao Lingyu and the others arrived, many experts had already tried to open the doors. They couldn't open the doors at all. The demon emperors could also see that there was a relatively powerful array in the palace. They also realized that they had to break the array. However, they had no idea how to do so. Everyone, there must be something wrong with those yin-yang fish taiji diagrams. Everyone, attack them with me. Let's see if we can break the array. The Dragon Emperor knew that they couldn't wait any longer. They had to take action, so he pointed at the faintly discernible taiji diagrams around the palace. As soon as the Dragon Emperor finished speaking, he had already raised his golden spear and stabbed it at a circle of taiji diagrams on the ground. No! Xiao Lingyu immediately shouted a reminder. However, the Dragon Emperor's spear had already pierced that taiji diagram. Moreover, the other experts also attacked the taiji diagrams around them. Many experts of the three realms noticed those taiji diagrams. They had the same feeling as the Dragon Emperor, that these taiji diagrams were the key to the array in the palace. After the taiji diagrams were attacked, they suddenly trembled and then spun faster. The entire hall and the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron trembled even more violently. Meanwhile, the runes and patterns on the stone pillars and iron chains became even more obvious, and the strange radiance shone even brighter. However, the demon beasts that crawled out from the ground started to sway along with the hall, and they seemed to be unable to stabilize themselves. Moreover, they stopped attacking the experts of the three dimensions. Seeing the state of those demonic beasts, everyone thought that their attacks on the taiji diagrams were effective, so they ignored Xiao Lingyu's warning and continued to attack the taiji diagrams. The hall shook more and more violently, and the few demonic beasts slowly dissipated. All of them turned back into statues and fell to the ground. Boom! A loud crash came out from the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron, followed by a scorching aura. Everyone focused their eyes on the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron and were surprised to discover that a cluster of bright white flames was floating above the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. The hot aura was being emitted by this cluster of flames. Before anyone could take a closer look, the cluster of flames suddenly trembled, and then it spat out serpents of fire that charged towards the experts of the three realms. It was also when the bright white cluster of flames appeared that Xiao Lingyu had already sensed that his primal chaos true fire was extremely unstable. Moreover, the primal chaos true fire that was originally released had automatically hidden inside Xiao Lingyu's body without Xiao Lingyu's command or control. It was very obvious that Xiao Lingyu's primal chaos true fire was afraid of the bright white cluster of flames, and it had no intention of competing with it at all. The quality of the bright white cluster of flames definitely far surpassed that of the primal chaos true fire, and the quality of the primal chaos true fire far surpassed that of ordinary divine flames. From this, one could see how powerful the bright white cluster of flames was. Xiao Lingyu reckoned that even he would find it difficult to resist such a powerful cluster of flames when it attacked the experts of the three realms at this moment. Only now did the experts of the three realms realize that they should not have attacked the taiji diagrams. However, it was already too late. Several bright, white serpents of fire wreaked havoc in the hall, before returning to the cluster of flames. However, they had already taken the lives of more than 10 experts of the three realms. As for the experts of the three realms who were still alive, their faces were all ashen black, and even the Dragon Emperor was no exception. Xiaoling Yu and the others, however, were unharmed. This was because in a moment of desperation, Xiaoling Yu had taken out the yin-yang mirror, and the fire serpents that had originally whistled over automatically turned around and left when they encountered the yin-yang mirror. I already warned you not to attack the Taiji diagrams, but you didn't believe me. Look at what happened now. Miao Ying said with a hint of anger. They won't believe us, Qing Xian said with a strange smile. Just as the two women finished speaking, the bright white cluster of flames trembled again, and several more serpents of fire shot out in all directions of the hall. These serpents of fire were extremely powerful, and even ordinary defensive divine artifacts could be melted in an instant. The experts of the three realms were unable to defend themselves at all, and could only flee in panic. However, the fire serpents that had pounced on Xiaoling Yu and the others once again turned around and left when they encountered the yin-yang mirror. This made Xiaoling Yu and the others feel much more at ease. These fire serpents took the lives of several Emperor-level experts, and even caused serious injuries to 3 Emperor-level experts. However, everyone also discovered that the yin-yang mirror could repel the fire serpents, so they all drew closer to Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu had no intention of protecting these cultivators of the three realms, but she could not prevent them from drawing closer. If she attacked the experts who drew closer, then in such a dangerous situation, these experts of the three realms would most likely attack her at the same time out of desperation. The experts of the three realms all gathered around Xiaoling Yu, and the bright white cluster of flames once again shot out serpents of fire. However, these serpents of fire only flew around the hall once, and did not cause any damage before gathering together again. At this moment, whether it was the 8 stone pillars or the 8 chains, they all shone brightly, and the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron was constantly jumping. The Tai Chi cauldron jumped higher and higher, as if it wanted to swallow the bright white cluster of flames again. Meanwhile, the bright white cluster of flames only continued to shoot out serpents of fire, and did not do anything else. Although the experts of the three realms were temporarily safe, they still had lingering fear on their faces. Everyone knew that they had not passed. The two extremes, hall shook more and more violently. What shocked everyone was that cracks actually appeared on the extremely sturdy golden walls. The entire hall seemed as if it could collapse at any moment. If the two extremes hall really collapsed, did that mean everyone had a way out? Before they could figure out, the bright white cluster of flames suddenly turned into 8 serpents of fire, and they threw themselves into the 8 stone pillars. The fiery red stone pillars were immediately enveloped by white light, and then the white light spread to the chains. Under the bright white cluster of flames' actions, the frequency and amplitude of the Tai Chi cauldrons jumping rapidly decreased. However, the Tai Chi cauldron seemed to feel that it was being suppressed too much, and it still did not give up resisting, and it was still struggling violently. Not long after, something that left everyone dumbfounded happened. After a series of futile struggles, the Tai Chi cauldron actually exploded. However, the exploded cauldron did not splatter outwards, and instead slowly condensed into an 8-legged lizard-like monster. Not only did the monster have 8 legs, but it also had the head of a dragon, the tail of a crocodile, and its entire body was covered in bronze scales. On each of its 8 legs, there was a shining white iron chain that bound them. Is it a treasured cauldron or a monster? An expert said in extreme shock. No one could answer his question. Everyone looked at the monster and also at the cracks on the walls. The cracks became more and more obvious, and everyone vaguely saw hope of escaping. The Tai Chi cauldron transformed into an 8-legged monster, and it struggled even more violently. In just 10 minutes, it broke the 8 chains, and then it let out a deafening roar, and then it pushed down the 8 fiery red stone pillars. As soon as the 8 stone pillars fell, the entire hall collapsed. At this moment, the experts of the three realms all flew out, thinking that this was a chance to escape. However, what they didn't expect was that as soon as the hall collapsed, the circles of Yin-Yang Taijida flew into the air above the hall and gathered together. They released circles of black and white light, sealing the entire mountain. None of the experts of the three realms managed to escape, and all the cultivators were trapped in the black and white light with the eight-legged monster. An expert tried to charge out, but even with a divine weapon opening a path, he could not break through the seemingly weak layer of light. Shaoling Yu also tried to attack the black and white light, but he could not charge out, and even the merciless divine sword could not break through the light. The eight-legged monster that had just escaped was now bathed in bright white flames. It also fiercely pounced on the light screen, but like Shaoling Yu and the other experts of the three realms, it could not charge out at all, and it was bounced back time and time again. Refine this monster, and you can obtain the divine weapon, Tai Chi Cauldron. If you can't refine it, you will all be buried in this monster's stomach. An old and indifferent voice came from the yin-yang taiji diagram above their heads. Everyone heard it clearly. Everyone could guess that this was Tenchi's reminder, and he did not want them to take any chances. However, when they heard the words divine weapon, their fear of the eight-legged monster subconsciously decreased. There were not many divine weapons in the realm of the gods. If they could ascend to the realm of the gods with a divine weapon, even if their cultivation was at the bottom of the realm of the gods, their future would be smooth. We have no way out, and we can only fight with this monster. I hope that everyone can understand the situation before us and work together to kill this monster. Although the dragon monarch shouted, he no longer took the lead and charged forward like before. Killing this eight-legged monster was a must, but it would not be easy. Moreover, everyone was thinking, after killing this monster, who would the divine weapon, Tai Chi Cauldron, belong to? When the time came, there would definitely be an even more intense battle. Should they hold back? Chapter 471. Before the eight-legged monster was killed, everyone was already thinking about the eight-legged Tai Chi Cauldron. After all, they were not family, so it was inevitable that they would think more about themselves. Just as Tenchi's voice fell, the eight-legged monster turned its attention to the experts of the three realms after several failed attempts. Then, its entire body shone with white light as it charged toward the group of experts from the demon clan. The strength of this eight-legged monster was very strong. It was definitely much stronger than the four monsters in the hall from before. However, its current strength should have been greatly weakened by the white ball of fire that was tightly wrapped around its body. Even so, its combat power was not to be underestimated. Several demon emperors and demon venerables stood in front of the demon clan cultivators. The venerable dragon emperor stood at the front, thrusting his golden spear at the monster. The monster was not afraid of the dragon emperor's spear, and its speed did not decrease at all. When it approached the demon clan team, it swatted at the golden spear with one of its front claws. Although the golden spear was of extraordinary quality, it could not block the monster's attack for even a moment before it was swatted away by the monster's front claws. The dragon emperor dodged in a panic, and the group of demon clan experts also scattered, not daring to resist. With just one attack, the demon clan's formation was already in chaos, and the monster was not hurt at all. After the demon clan was scattered, the eight-legged monster pounced on the experts of the immortal realm and demon realm, easily tearing apart the defense line of the experts of the immortal realm and demon realm. The formation of the experts from the immortal plane and demon plane was torn apart like a thin sheet of paper. After that, the all-powerful figures of the immortal plane and demon plane all dodged like stray dogs. None of them dared to face the eight-legged monster directly. The eight-legged monster seemed to want to scatter all the formations. After the demon clan and the experts of the immortal realm and demon realm were scattered, it fiercely charged toward Shaoling Yu and the others. Shaoling Yu did not want his formation to be in chaos. Once it was, he would not be able to take care of everyone, and then someone would be in danger. Therefore, before the eight-legged monster rushed over, Xiaoling Yu had already taken out the yin-yang mirror and poured his power into it. The eight-legged monster had just rushed over when the yin-yang mirror suddenly trembled and four monster phantoms appeared. But what surprised Xiaoling Yu was that under the black and white light screen, the four monster phantoms could not form the four symbols domain. Even without the four symbols domain, these four monster phantoms still had the strength of a venerable rank. Moreover, they were almost immortal and could launch substantial attacks. Under Xiaoling Yu's command, the four monster phantoms charged towards the eight-legged monster. Four phantoms were entangled, the eight-legged monster's phantoms. The monster phantoms on the monster phantoms demon realm and demon realm. Phantoms of monsters, and the monster demon realm and the monster. Before the eight-legged monster could reach them, Xiaoling Yu and the others had already moved to their positions. The eight-legged monster's speed was too fast, and they did not have time to react. But after being restricted by the four phantoms, the venerable rank experts were able to dodge the monster's attacks in time. Everyone, we only have 10 minutes. Now is the best time for us to counterattack. If we miss this time, none of us can hope to have a good ending. Let's attack together. Xiaoling Yu warned the experts of the three realms with a cold expression, and then he continued to lead the others to dodge. The eight-legged monster was also trying its best to break free from the four phantoms, but the four phantoms were holding on tightly to it. No matter how it attacked, it was unable to disperse the four phantoms. It could only continue to charge at Xiaoling Yu and the others, as if it would not stop until this team was destroyed. When the experts of the three realms saw that the eight-legged monster's speed was greatly reduced, they naturally did not hesitate. In order to save their own lives, they had to get rid of the eight-legged monster first. Therefore, they all steadied their panicked minds and successively attacked the eight-legged monster that was chasing Xiaoling Yu and the others. The eight-legged monster's defense was extremely strong, but it was also weakened by the brilliant white fireball. Originally, the attacks of the experts of the three realms were unable to do anything to it, but now, after being hit repeatedly, it could feel waves of pain. Thus, the eight-legged monster gave up on chasing Xiaoling Yu and the others, and turned to pounce at the cultivators who were attacking it. Xiaoling Yu and the others attacked the eight-legged monster like the other cultivators. Regardless of whether it was the primal chaos seal or the unforgiving divine sword, they were all able to inflict considerable damage on the eight-legged monster. No one knew exactly what kind of existence the eight-legged monster was, but everyone could see that their attacks were effective against it. This would also make everyone attack with all their might. If anyone was targeted by the eight-legged monster, there was no need for them to attack. They could focus on dodging and running away. However, although the eight-legged monster's speed had been reduced, and most of the Paragon experts could not be caught by it, the same could not be said for the Emperor experts. The eight-legged monster seemed to have realized this as well. It had already given up on chasing after those sovereign-level experts and focused on killing those Emperor-level cultivators. None of the Emperor-level cultivators that were targeted by it could escape. They were all swallowed into its stomach. The outcome of being swallowed by the eight-legged monster was obvious death. The eight-legged monster was attacked more and more often, but the number of experts of the three realms grew fewer and fewer as well. Emperor-level experts were being killed one after another, causing the other Emperor-level experts to be filled with terror, and they all began to hide in the direction of the exalts. However, the Paragons didn't want to be targeted by the eight-legged beasts. Whenever an Emperor Realm expert approached them, they would immediately hide to the side. They didn't want to provide protection for the Emperor Realm experts, even if they were of the same race. The few Emperor experts of the Immortal World Sword Sect were also being killed. Although they were very strong together, under the constant attacks of the eight-legged monster, they could not form a joint force. Most of the Emperor experts present were from the Demon Clan and the Spirit Clan. These Emperor experts originally thought that they would have a chance to take advantage of the situation by coming with the Demon Clan's Paragon experts. However, They never expected that at this juncture, the demon clan's paragon experts and demon emperors would actually hide from them. It seemed that they had taken the initiative to give up on their lives. Half of the time it took to brew a cup of tea had passed. The eight-legged monster had not fallen, but only Elder Pung was left among the Emperor experts present. Only a few Emperor experts from the Sword Sect had come from the immortal world and demon realm, so their losses were not great. However, a large number of Emperor experts had come from the demon realm, and they were all late-stage Emperor realm elites. This loss was too great. After all, after these Paragon experts ascended or died, they would have to rely on these late-stage Emperor realm experts to support the future of the demon realm. It was not that the demon emperors and demon venerables did not care about the lives of these Emperor realm cultivators, but it was really difficult for them to protect themselves now. So how could they protect other cultivators? Moreover, everyone knew that time was limited. So in this limited time, the Paragon experts of the three realms had to attack as much as possible and not help others defend. Other than Shaolin Yu and the others, the cultivators present scattered and attacked the eight-legged monster from all directions. The eight-legged monster had already killed all the cultivators it could kill. It could only roar angrily and randomly choose a cultivator to pounce on. Generally speaking, it would pounce on whoever clearly caused it the most damage. Shaolin Yu and the others' attack power was relatively strong, so the eight-legged monster kept chasing after Shaolin Yu and the others in the end, not giving them a chance to attack it. Under the persistent attacks of the experts of the three realms, the eight-legged monster's aura gradually weakened, and its speed slowed down a lot. However, the brilliant white flames enveloping its entire body became more and more vigorous. The time it took to brew a cup of tea passed very quickly, and the four phantoms that were entangling the eight-legged monster dissipated. Shaolin Yu's cultivation could not recover so quickly, so he could not make the yin-yang mirror release the four phantoms again. Although it had lost the entanglement of the four phantoms, the eight-legged monster, which had been attacked for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, was much weaker than before in terms of speed and aura. It still could not catch up to the Paragon experts and was still passively beaten. The more it was attacked, the worse the eight-legged monster's condition became, and the more the brilliant white flames restricted it. After sacrificing the lives of many Emperor-level experts, and Shaolin Yu had also used up most of his cultivation, the eight-legged monster was no longer that frightening in the eyes of the Paragon experts of the three realms. Moreover, if nothing unexpected happened, it would soon collapse. Nothing unexpected happened, but even though the eight-legged monster's condition was constantly deteriorating, it did not collapse. Even though it could only crawl in the end, unable to move at all, it still existed in the brilliant white flames. It did not die, nor did it disappear. It should be unkillable. Tenchi's previous warning was only for us to refine it, not kill it. After persisting in attacking for a while, the Dragon Emperor said with a frown. Everyone stopped attacking, then huddled together and stared at the eight-legged monster in the ball of flames with serious expressions. At present, the eight-legged monster should have completely lost the ability to resist, and everyone could be considered to have removed the threat from the eight-legged monster. However, how are they going to refine it? And who is going to refine it? The eight-legged monster was unable to threaten their safety, and after staring at it for a while, they could not help but glance at the other experts. While refining it, we have to refine that ball of white flames first. Now that its condition is extremely low, it should not be difficult to refine it. I think the focus of refining should be on that ball of white flames. The late-stage Immortal Venerable had cultivated for a long time, so his vision was naturally not bad. Moreover, he did not deliberately conceal his words, so all the cultivators present could hear him clearly. Everyone nodded, but they also knew that the quality of that ball of white flames was extremely high. After refining it, they would definitely gain a lot. However, refining that ball of white flames was not something that ordinary Paragon experts could do. Chapter 472. Of course, one didn't have to get close to it. Xiao Lingyu knew many ways to refine some treasures without getting close to it. For example, to refine this white flame and the eight-legged monster, one could use a blood refining technique. Although this blood refining technique was often used by demon realm cultivators, the experts of the three realms should all know about it. Most likely, they had already thought of it by now. In other words, everyone had a chance to obtain the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. However, the current situation was a little complicated and no one could easily cast the technique. The experts of the three realms were all staring at the white flame and the eight-legged monster. Anyone who dared to cast the technique first would be obstructed by the other experts and even attacked. Everyone looked at each other, but no one dared to make the first move. The temptation of a sacred artifact was too great, but they had to be alive to enjoy it. Xiao Lingyu was determined to get the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. He had paid the most to get to this point, so he had no reason to give it up. The three supreme-grade divine artifacts have all been taken by your demon race. I want this sacred artifact. Fellow Daoists from the demon race, please help me resist the experts of the immortal realm and demon realm for a while. Xiao Lingyu transmitted his voice to the Dragon Emperor. The Dragon Emperor seemed to be in a difficult position. After pondering for a moment, he said, "Brother Xiao, this is a sacred artifact after all. Compared to a sacred artifact, supreme-grade divine artifacts are just fleeting clouds. Even if I agree, the other experts of the demon race won't." Xiao Lingyu's expression was very ugly. He sneered and asked, "Is this how the demon race cooperates with us? You took the three supreme-grade divine artifacts, and I didn't say anything. Now you want to snatch the sacred artifact? Do you think we're your hired thugs?" The Dragon Emperor shook his head and said, "Brother Xiao, don't misunderstand. If Brother Xiao is interested in supreme-grade divine artifacts, we can give Brother Xiao two later. However, please forgive us for not giving up this sacred artifact so easily." Xiao Lingyu snorted coldly and said, "Forget it. I'm not greedy for supreme quality god artifacts. Since you're unwilling to help me, then we'll rely on our own abilities." The Dragon Emperor didn't reply, but he was certain that Xiao Lingyu wouldn't cooperate with the experts of the immortal and demon realms. After all, Xiao Lingyu had already sided with the Yao clan when they were fighting for the supreme-grade divine artifact. The experts of the immortal and demon realms wouldn't be willing to help Xiao Lingyu. Moreover, although the immortal world and the demon world seemed to be working together, they must have their own plans, and it would be difficult for them to join forces. The Dragon Emperor could also see that Xiao Lingyu was not in a good state at the moment. She had used up at least half of her power, so her strength should not be too strong. After making such calculations, the Dragon Emperor felt that the Demon Clan was the strongest party at the moment, and they were the most likely to obtain the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron. While everyone was waiting and watching, the eight-legged monster that was enveloped by dazzling white flames actually gradually recovered. Its originally weak aura that was crawling and gasping for breath slowly stood up, and then it glanced at the experts of the three dimensions with hatred. Everyone secretly cursed, and then took advantage of the fact that the eight-legged monster had not fully recovered to attack it at the same time. After a series of bombardments, the eight-legged monster was once again lying on the ground and gasping for breath. Moreover, it was still slowly recovering. Everyone didn't dare to be careless, so they didn't stop attacking. In fact, they didn't want to wait any longer. While attacking the eight-legged monster, they wanted to disrupt the situation and wait for an opportunity to use the blood refining technique. However, everyone soon discovered that if the eight-legged monster didn't recover to a certain extent, the brilliant white flames would not suppress it, and their attacks would be useless. Only when the eight-legged monster recovered to the point where it could display the strength of a venerable rank expert would the brilliant white flames show their might and suppress it. Only then would everyone's attacks be effective. However, Xiao Lingyu did make an additional discovery. When the eight-legged monster recovered to the venerable rank, the power of the brilliant white flames would be concentrated on its body. At that time, everyone could approach it, but no one dared to. Letting the eight-legged monster remain at the venerable rank, neither stronger nor weaker, was the best time to refine the brilliant white flames. Because at that time, the power of the brilliant white flames would be concentrated on the eight-legged monster, and its resistance to the refinement of the cultivators shouldn't be too strong. However, the experts of the three realms were also watching. Once the eight-legged monster recovered to the venerable rank, they would attack. They wouldn't let the eight-legged monster stay at the venerable rank for too long. The attacks of the experts of the three realms were a big problem. Xiao Lingyu didn't know how to solve this problem. He wouldn't tell them about his discovery, and the experts of the three realms wouldn't cooperate with him. The eight-legged monster could always recover. Everyone's attacks naturally consumed a lot of energy. Gradually, some cultivators didn't put in much effort. Anyway, the other cultivators would attack. It would be easy to control the eight-legged monster. Why should I waste my energy? Naturally, more and more cultivators had this idea. However, Xiao Lingyu continued to attack as if he had a deep hatred for the eight-legged monster. Seeing that Xiao Lingyu and the others have been working so hard, after a while, they just let Xiao Lingyu and the others attack, and they just watched from the side. Whether it was the experts of the immortal realm, or the demon realm, or the cultivators of the demon realm, they were all very afraid of Xiao Lingyu and the others. Naturally, they were happy to see Xiao Lingyu continue to expend his energy. Everyone felt that it was a competition of patience. They wanted to see who would use up all their energy and reserves first. Only then would it be the final moment. Under normal circumstances, if they didn't do anything, although the energy consumption was very slow, if everyone attacked the eight-legged monster, then there would be a day when their energy would be exhausted. This might take a long time. However, for the sake of the sacred artifact, everyone was very patient. Under the cover of the black and white light curtain, the cultivators couldn't absorb the energy in the space to recover their strength. They could only use the elixirs or crystals in their storage magic treasures. However, any reserves were limited. In the end, only Xiao Lingyu and the others were left attacking the eight-legged monster. Xiao Lingyu could also control the eight-legged monster's time in the supremacy realm. Of course, Xiao Lingyu wouldn't make things too obvious. At the beginning, when the eight-legged monster's strength had just recovered to the supremacy realm, he would strike it down. When the experts of the three realms gradually became numb, he would extend the eight-legged monster's time in the supremacy realm. First, he extended the eight-legged monster's time to 100 breaths. Then, Xiao Lingyu would strike the eight-legged monster's strength again. Then it would be 10 minutes. Then, it would be an hour. The situation of the eight-legged monster naturally attracted the attention of the experts of the three realms. Everyone also felt that Xiao Lingyu's behavior was a little strange. Therefore, they would also pay attention to Xiao Lingyu and the others' every move. In the eyes of the experts of the three realms, the eight-legged monster's strength was increasing because Xiao Lingyu and the others had expended too much energy. They didn't think too much about it. In any case, everyone was watching. As long as the eight-legged monster's strength showed signs of surpassing the supremacy realm, they wouldn't sit idly by. Now, they naturally allowed Xiao Lingyu and the others to expend their energy. With so many experts watching, they believed that Xiao Lingyu wouldn't be able to pull any tricks. After the eight-legged monster's strength fell below the supremacy realm once again, the eight-legged monster had just recovered to the supremacy realm. The brilliant white fireball immediately concentrated all its might on the eight-legged monster. Xiao Lingyu transformed the primordial chaos fire into a purplish-black fire dragon that enveloped the brilliant white fireball. Hidden within the purplish-black fire dragon was a large amount of Xiao Lingyu's blood essence and soul. The quality of the primordial chaos fire was extremely high, and its color was dense. The experts of the three realms who were already a little careless only thought that Xiao Lingyu was only suppressing the eight-legged monster. They didn't notice that Xiao Lingyu's blood soul was hidden within the primordial chaos fire. Even if they weren't careless, it would be very difficult for them to notice the problem. After all, Xiao Lingyu had been attacking the eight-legged monster with the primordial chaos fire before. The purplish-black primordial chaos fire enveloped the brilliant white fireball. The brilliant white fireball was using all its strength to suppress the eight-legged monster and didn't divert any energy to resist the primordial chaos fire. The blood soul within the primordial chaos fire slowly poured into the brilliant white fireball under Shaolin Yu's control. Although the experts of the three realms have been watching, their consciousnesses couldn't penetrate the primordial chaos fire to see the situation of the brilliant white fireball or the eight-legged monster. Therefore, they didn't notice anything unusual. Shaolin Yu was actually very nervous, and so were the three women and Elder Peng. However, they still forced themselves to remain calm, and their expressions were normal. However, in the past, Shaolin Yu and the others were able to quickly reduce the eight-legged monster's cultivation level to below the supremacy level. This time, however, they took a long time. This gradually made the experts of the three realms suspicious. After 10 minutes, the Dragon Emperor made his move. He didn't attack Shaolin Yu and the others. Instead, he threw his golden spear at the primordial chaos fire. It looked like he was attacking the eight-legged monster inside the primordial chaos fire, but in reality, he was trying to blast the primordial chaos fire away to see the situation inside. The golden spear was very high quality. At the very least, it wasn't afraid of being burned by the primordial chaos fire. After it pierced the primordial chaos fire, it immediately shone brightly with golden light. A powerful aura fluctuation actually blasted the primordial chaos fire away a little, allowing everyone to see the situation inside. Oh no, he's secretly refining it. Hu Yunzi cried out in alarm. All the experts of the three realms could clearly see that the originally brilliant white fireball was now dyed with a different color. Furthermore, when the golden spear blasted the primordial chaos fire away, there were very obvious fluctuations of soul power and the smell of blood that seeped out. Seeing this, everyone was stunned at first. Then, they all became nervous. They looked at Shaolin Yu and the others with unfriendly gazes. The threat was very obvious. From everyone's expressions, it was obvious that if Shaolin Yu didn't stop, they would attack Shaolin Yu. Chapter 473. The six supremacies from the immortal world and demon world took the initiative to attack Shaolin Yu. The Dragon Emperor and the other demon race experts hesitated for a moment and did not make a move. In the eyes of the Dragon Emperor and the other demon race experts, Shaolin Yu and the rest would not be able to withstand the attacks of the six supremacies from the immortal world and demon world. Shaolin Yu would also not be able to complete the refinement of the brilliant white fireball and the eight-legged monster. Letting the immortal world and demon world experts fight, Shaolin Yu and the rest would also increase the demon race's chances of victory. Furthermore, the demon race would not let Shaolin Yu and the rest down and would not take the initiative to break the agreement of cooperation. Shaolin Yu was focused on the refinement and could not participate in the defense. Fudi was still recuperating, so the defense could only be completed by the three women. The three women were naturally not afraid. They stood in front of Shaolin Yu, 3 against 6. Qing Xian's slender divine sword could attack, while the Nanhua alms bowl could defend. Anya's merciless divine sword was sharp, and no one dared to block it. Qing Xian once again placed the blood-colored flute in front of her red lips and slowly played a soul-stirring melody. The three beauties were also supremacies. Even if they fought with their lives on the line, it would be difficult for them to break through in a short period of time. After all, the immortal world and demon world experts were not on the same side. They could not fully cooperate, especially under the merciless divine sword's sharpness. They all scrambled to retreat and wanted someone else to block it. The three women were of one mind and were determined to fight to the end. Naturally, their battle strength was not to be underestimated. Even if the 6 supremacies of the immortal world and demon world worked together, they would have to pay a heavy price to defeat the 3 women. Under the attack of the merciless divine sword, any one of them could die on the spot. This made them not dare to get close. They could only attack from afar with spells and magic treasures. However, Their attacks could not pose a threat to the three women for a while. If they really dared to rush over and fight head-on, although there would be casualties, as long as they gave it their all, they would definitely be able to defeat the three women in a short period of time. However, none of them were willing to suffer such casualties. Naturally, none of them were willing to rush over. Xiao Yu continued to refine the white fireball, while the three girls stood in front of him like an indestructible barrier. According to the attacks of the experts from the immortal and demon realms, even if they could break through the defenses of the three women, Xiao Yu would have already completed the sacrificial refining. The more the Dragon Emperor and the other demon race experts watched, the more their brows furrowed. In the end, they could no longer sit still and watch. The Dragon Emperor gave a few demon race experts a look, and those demon race experts joined the attack on the three women. The demon race experts were also attacking. The pressure on the three women suddenly increased, and the defensive line almost collapsed in the next moment. The demon race openly turned hostile, and it was under the condition that Xiao Yu helped them obtain 3 supreme-grade divine artifacts. Although it was expected, it still made Xiao Yu extremely angry. After the demon race experts attacked once, the three women were already in imminent danger. Xiao Yu could not help but shout, "It's fine if you demon race don't help, but you actually attacked. Are you waiting for your race to be exterminated? Haha, brother Xiao, don't be agitated. The divine artifact left behind by the Tenshi, anyone can fight for it. We're just relying on our own abilities. Our demon race did not intend to be enemies with you." The Dragon Emperor laughed and said, without the slightest trace of shame on his face, Good. You will definitely regret this." After Xiao Yu finished speaking, she invited Fudi, who was still recuperating, to come out. Fudi had been following Xiao Yu for all these years, and it had been improving rapidly. It had also been taken care of and protected by Xiao Yu. It could be said that without Xiao Yu, it would not be where it was today. Without Xiao Yu, it was very likely that it would have died in the East Pole Demon Sect. Therefore, it had always been deeply grateful to Xiao Yu and would never disobey Xiao Yu's orders. After coming out and seeing the situation, Fudi was not afraid. After quickly waking up, it let out a roar. The mysterious runes on the carapace on its back spun rapidly, and a circle of chaotic light shone all over its body. After swallowing that strange stone, Fudi's strength had greatly improved. The quality of its chaotic magic power was far stronger than ordinary divine power. Strong physical defense, strong skill quality, and extremely fast reaction speed were Fudi's biggest advantages. With these advantages, it was almost unafraid of any venerable realm expert's attack. However, Fudi would definitely have a hard time fighting with an injured body after this battle. After Fudi was invited out, Xiao Yu took out the yin-yang mirror again and then began to detonate the countless blood crystals in his body. Those blood crystals contained a lot of Xiao Yu's skill. The energy that surged out when they exploded was all crazily poured into the yin-yang mirror under Xiao Yu's control. After the yin-yang mirror suddenly trembled, it once again released 4 illusory monsters. However, these 4 illusory monsters were more solid than before, and the aura on their bodies was also more powerful. However, they still did not exceed the venerable realm. This time, when the yin-yang mirror was activated again, Xiao Yu's skill was completely exhausted. The reason why Xiao Yu dared to sacrifice the brilliant white ball of fire and the 8-legged monster in front of the experts of the 3 realms was that he still had 2 trump cards, the blood crystals and Fudi. With Fudi and the 4 illusory monsters, Xiao Yu's side had 5 more powerful venerable realm experts. Naturally, the pressure on the 3 women was greatly reduced, especially the 4 illusory monsters. They were immortal. In this special environment, almost any attack was useless against them. Although they could not help with defense, they could attack the enemy. Under Xiao Yu's control, the 4 illusory monsters and Fudi all pounced on the experts of the demon clan. The 4 illusory monsters were not afraid of any attack, so they only cared about attacking. Foodie's speed was extremely fast, and his physical defense was high, so he could dodge and attack at the same time. With 5 such special Venerable Realm experts attacking the experts of the Demon Clan, the Demon Clan experts' formation was immediately thrown into chaos. Not only were they unable to continue attacking the 3 women, but they also found it difficult to protect themselves. Everyone hold on. These 4 illusory monsters can only last for 10 minutes. The Dragon Emperor reminded the experts of the Demon Clan. The cultivators of the Immortal Realm and Demon Realm continued to attack, but they still did not dare to get close to the 3 women. The unforgiving Divine Sword's attack was too powerful. Since the Demon Clan had already made their move, the experts of the Immortal Realm and Demon Realm did not need to rush to break the other party's defense. After 10 minutes, the 4 illusory monsters would disappear, and the experts of the Demon Clan could come to help. Whether it was the experts of the Demon Clan or the cultivators of the Immortal Realm and Demon Realm, they did not think that Shaolin Yu could refine the brilliant white ball of fire and the 8-legged monster in the next 10 minutes. Shaolin Yu also did not think that 10 minutes was enough, but he knew that the 4 illusory monsters should be able to last for more than 10 minutes. They should be able to last for at least an hour, because this time he had poured almost all the power contained in his blood crystals into the yin-yang mirror. Of course, an hour was not enough for Shaolin Yu to complete the refinement, but it was enough for him to penetrate the brilliant white ball of fire and touch the 8-legged monster. Previously, Tenchi's reminder was very clear. After refining the 8-legged monster, he would be able to obtain the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron. He did not say that he had to refine the brilliant white ball of fire first. When the late-stage Immortal Venerable said that he had to refine the brilliant white ball of fire first, he also meant that the power of the brilliant white ball of fire was not completely concentrated on the 8-legged monster. The 4 illusory monsters did indeed last for an hour before dissipating. However, all the experts of the Demon Clan, including the Dragon Emperor, had suffered heavy injuries and consumed a lot of energy. Foodie retreated and released the chaotic light with all his strength to defend with the 3 women. Although the experts of the Demon Clan were heavily injured, they also knew that time waited for no one. Therefore, they did not recuperate, but attacked together with the experts of the Immortal and Demon realms. Under such circumstances, Shaolin Yu and the others were the enemies of the 3 realms. For countless years, perhaps only the Demon Venerable had such an experience. However, the Demon Venerable was eventually sealed by the experts of the 3 realms. No one knew what would happen to Shaolin Yu and the others. After an hour, Shaolin Yu's blood soul had penetrated the brilliant white ball of fire and touched the 8-legged monster. The 8-legged monster was firmly suppressed by the power of the brilliant white ball of fire, but could not repel the corrosion of Shaolin Yu's powerful blood soul. Although it was unwilling, the essence blood wrapped in the blood soul still invaded its body. Fortunately, Shaolin Yu's bloodline was special and powerful. If it was an ordinary cultivator's blood soul, it would be very difficult to penetrate the 8-legged monster's body. When the 4 illusory monsters dissipated, Shaolin Yu had already used all his strength to control the blood soul to invade the 8-legged monster's spiritual sea. Shaolin Yu guessed that as long as the 8-legged monster recognized him as its master, the refinement should be considered complete. At least, it would be considered as a preliminary completion. Therefore, this was the final moment. He could not spare any effort to help the 3 women and Foodie defend. Otherwise, it was very likely that all his previous efforts would be wasted. Although the experts of the Demon Clan were not in good condition, they attacked together with the experts of the Immortal and Demon realms. Without the help of the 4 illusory monsters, Foodie and the 3 women would not be able to resist even if they used all their strength. The first round of attacks from the experts of the 3 realms shattered the chaotic light barrier that Foodie had set up. Another round of attacks came, and the 3 women vomited blood. Even so, the 3 women and Foodie did not take half a step back. Elder Peng, who had not reached the Venerable realm, could only be anxious. Another round of attacks came. If nothing unexpected happened, the three women and Foodie would be severely injured. They might even be killed. The power of more than 10 venerable realm experts attacking together was not to be underestimated. Moreover, the three women were exhausted and were not in good condition. Before the next round of attacks came, Anya's body suddenly disappeared, and Merciless Divine sword suddenly expanded. It swept across the sky, and a large expanse of sharp sword light surged out like a river of stars, sweeping away most of the attacks. After its body expanded, Merciless Divine sword stood between the experts of the three realms and Shaolin Yu's group. It seemed indestructible. Chapter 474. Anya must have used a sword cultivator's taboo move in a moment of desperation, not only for Shaolin Yu, but also for the rest of the people on his side. Merciless was very powerful, but Anya had just forcefully broken through to the Paragon level by condensing a sword nascent soul. Even if it was a taboo move, it would not be able to last for long. However, as long as Merciless was not destroyed, Anya would not have any major problems after cultivating Merciless into a sword nascent soul. The Merciless Divine sword only lasted for 100 breaths of time before its brilliance dimmed, while Anya flew out from the Merciless Divine sword with a pale face. Her body even staggered a few steps, looking like she was on the verge of collapse, causing Qing Xian, Miao Ying, and Elder Peng to be extremely worried. The experts of the three realms naturally did not stop attacking. Shaolin Yu invaded the eight-legged monster's sea of consciousness with her blood soul and attacked its soul. Shaolin Yu still needed some time, but the experts of the three realms were not willing to give her this time. Perhaps because of Anya's taboo move, Miao Ying threw out her blood-colored flute. A blood-colored ribbon surged from her 10 fingers towards the blood-colored flute. The blood-colored ribbon was formed from Miao Ying's blood essence. Clearly, Miao Ying was going all out. Nourished by Miao Ying's blood essence, the blood-colored flute constantly trembled and expanded. Although no one was playing it, it automatically played the flute. However, the flute sound was like a surging river or like a magnificent army charging into battle. Accompanied by the vigorous and solemn flute sound, strange sound waves were emitted from the blood-colored flute. The flute sound made it difficult for the experts of the three realms to stabilize their minds. They all felt their blood rush up and their minds become chaotic, making it difficult for them to attack with all their might. And the strange sound waves could make their attacks become very slow. Even if it was an attack from a divine artifact, it would still take a few breaths of time to fly over, and the opponent could easily receive it. Miao Ying had also used her trump card, and indeed bought a lot of time for everyone. However, the price she paid was also very heavy. She had lost a lot of blood essence, which would definitely have a relatively large negative impact on her future cultivation. In fact, Anya was the same in terms of negative impact. Miao Ying used her blood-colored flute to block, while Qing Xian and the pale-faced Anya looked at Shaolin Yu with an extremely anxious expression. If Shaolin Yu was still unable to complete the refinement, then Miao would have no way to block the attacks of the three realms experts. There was no time limit to Miao Ying's perseverance. As long as she continued to pour her blood essence into the blood-colored flute, the blood-colored flute could continue to display its might. However, Miao Ying's blood essence was limited, and if she consumed too much of it, the life essence energy in her body would not be able to sustain her life, and her life would be in danger. But she stubbornly, "Let's stop." But at that moment, Miao Ying heard Shaolin Yu's voice. Miao Ying looked to the side. She saw Shaolin Yu standing beside her with a concerned expression. She stopped pouring blood essence. However, she felt her vision darken. She felt like she was going to faint. Anya and Qing Xian supported Miao Ying. Elder Peng took out 2 milky white pills and gave them to Anya and Miao Ying. Shaolin Yu vaguely remembered that Elder Peng had used a lot of energy to repair her divine robes. At that time, Elder Peng had taken a milky white pill. After Miao Ying's blood-colored flute was taken away, the experts of the three realms quickly surrounded them. Their attacks did not stop because of Shaolin Yu's cold gaze. However, what surprised the experts of the three realms was that just as they launched a new round of attacks, the eight-legged monster actually pounced towards them. Moreover, the eight-legged monster's strength had surpassed the monarch level. The eight-legged monster was like a tiger in a flock of sheep. Its entire body was bathed in brilliant white flames. Not only was it extremely fast, but it was also very lethal. The encirclement formed by the experts of the three realms was immediately broken by the eight-legged monster. Then they all dodged in horror. Previously, when the eight-legged monster's strength had surpassed the monarch level, it had been entangled by the four illusory monsters. Therefore, it had been difficult to increase its speed. At that time, it could only kill monarch-level cultivators. But now, without the restriction of the four illusory monsters, whoever it chased could not escape. They could only fight it. However, the experts present were all on the monarch level. Who could face a monster that surpassed the monarch level? The monster did not chase after anyone. Instead, it first scattered the formation of the experts of the three realms. Then, it would chase after whoever approached or attacked Shaolin Yu and the others. It was very obvious that the eight-legged monster had been controlled by Shaolin Yu. Although they were very unwilling to believe it, the experts of the three realms had already seen this fact. Shaolin Yu's power had been severely damaged. Anya and Miao Ying had just used a forbidden technique. The foodie had not recovered from his serious injuries. Even Qing Xian had suffered serious injuries while defending. Now, on Shaolin Yu's side, apart from Elder Peng, who was still in good condition, the others had less than 30% of their combat strength. If the eight-legged monster had not recognized them as its master in time, Shaolin Yu and the others would have lost their lives here. While the eight-legged monster chased after the experts of the three realms, the yin-yang taiji diagram in the sky slowly dissipated. The black and white light curtain that enveloped the surroundings also gradually weakened. When the yin-yang taiji diagram and the black and white light curtain disappeared, Shaolin Yu summoned the eight-legged monster to her side. Then, she quickly left with the eight-legged monster. As for the three women, Elder Peng, and the foodie, they had been invited to the divine abode by Shaolin Yu. Although the eight-legged monster could deal with the experts of the three realms, Shaolin Yu's current condition was too poor. If the experts of the three realms were to fight desperately in desperation, even with the eight-legged monster's help, Shaolin Yu would not have a good ending. After all, there were too many experts of the three realms. Most importantly, Shaolin Yu had already discovered that the Dragon Emperor was showing signs of activating his innate divine ability. Shaolin Yu had not seen how powerful the innate divine ability of a five-clawed golden dragon was, but she could imagine with her feet that it was definitely very powerful. It was not something she could resist in her current condition. Moreover, it might even be able to imprison the eight-legged monster. Now that the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron was in his hands, Shaolin Yu only needed to let the people on his side recuperate. Once they recovered their strength, they would properly settle the score with the experts of the three realms, especially the Yao clan. Everyone, our enmity with that brat is too deep. Now that he has the eight-legged Tai Chi cauldron, he will definitely not let this matter rest in the future. His current condition is not good, so this is the best opportunity for us to kill him. If we wait until he recovers, even if we join forces, it will be very difficult for us to win. Moreover, we can't stay together forever. If he attacks us one by one, none of us will have a good ending. Therefore, I suggest that we all go together. Hu Yunzi warned the experts of the three realms, then flew in the direction that Shaolin Yu had disappeared. The other experts of the three realms also first fed themselves pills before flying away with Hu Yunzi. There was no way back, and Shaolin Yu did not know where the path forward was. He could only fly around randomly. Fortunately, Shaolin Yu's wings of extreme speed were extremely fast. Moreover, he did not need to expend any energy, so the experts of the three realms were unable to catch up to him at all. He had used up all his divine stones a long time ago, and the healing pills he had obtained from Maojian's storage ring had also been used up long ago. Fortunately, he had obtained a few bottles of higher-grade divine pills from the room in the hallway of the dual polarity hall. At this moment, he could use them to heal himself, the three women, and the glutton. Although the experts of the three realms were not afraid of losing him, they could only follow from afar. They were unable to lock onto Xiao Lingyu and attack him. Almost a month passed like this, and Xiao Lingyu finally found another door of light. There were 3 words written on this door of light. Lightstream region. Xiao Lingyu did not hesitate at all. He immediately dove into the door of light, and the experts of the 3 realms who had rushed over after him did the same. After passing through the door of light, Xiao Lingyu entered a boundless expanse of space. As far as he could see a nebula that looked like a whirlpool not too far ahead. Xiao Lingyu and the 8-legged monster flew towards the nebula together. After approaching it, he discovered that the nebula was extremely vast as well. Moreover, it was formed by countless streaks of light that were continuously flying in circular trajectories. The streaks of light that were flying at extreme speeds were formed by numerous planets of different sizes. However, there were also some streaks of light that were not planets or meteorites, but treasures. Some of these treasures did not have any packaging, while others were stored in jade boxes or jade bottles. They were also flying in circular trajectories at extreme speeds. At the center of the nebula was a space that looked like a whirlpool. Xiao Lingyu reckoned that the black hole was the only way out of this place. Although he had found the exit, it was not easy to approach it. After waiting outside the nebula for a while, over a dozen experts of the 3 realms had already charged over. Xiao Lingyu sucked in a deep breath and leapt into the nebula. To Xiao Lingyu's surprise, as soon as he and the 8-legged monster entered the nebula, a powerful force acted on him as if it wanted to pull him into a whirlpool. Xiao Lingyu stopped resisting and quickly flew off with the 8-legged monster. Moreover, they also moved in a circular trajectory. Afterwards, Xiao Lingyu stabilized himself and advanced a little further into the nebula. During this process, the powerful force continued to act on him. When Xiao Lingyu and the 8-legged monster were almost 1,000,000 kilometers into the nebula, he was no longer able to resist the force that came from somewhere. He immediately lost control of his body. He tried his best, but was unable to stop himself from flying along with the planets and magic treasures. The experts of the 3 realms had ventured deep into the nebula as well, but in the end, they were just like Xiao Lingyu. They were unable to control their bodies and could only follow the powerful force and fly in circles. The nebula was extremely vast, and Xiao Lingyu and the others were still on the outskirts of the nebula. It would take them almost 1,000 years to fly a circle, and after that, they would draw closer to the nebula. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.